Chapter 680. Although soul-searching could allow one to pry into someone's memories, it wasn't comprehensive, so unless it was absolutely necessary, Duanhai and Shu Qi didn't want to use this method to deal with Yang Kai. They needed Yang Kai to take the initiative to cooperate, and in their opinion, Yang Kai came from a remote place and was young, so he definitely wasn't scheming. However, after a series of exchanges, they found that this little brat was actually a hard bone to chew. No matter how they tried to coerce him, Yang Kai remained tight-lipped about the coffin-carrying man's secrets, refusing to reveal even half a word. Duanhai was telling the truth. He wasn't willing to offend an alchemist with a bright future. If possible, he still hoped to recruit Yang Kai into Bright Thunder Spirit religion. As long as Yang Kai joined, Duanhai would have plenty of opportunities to inquire about information from him. But after learning that Yang Kai didn't have such ambitions, Duanhai made a prompt decision. In any case, he would leave sooner or later and would never be used by Bright Thunder Spirit religion, so there was no harm in offending him. Why are you looking for the coffin-carrying man? What benefits can you obtain from him? Yang Kai looked at Duanhai and asked faintly. Duanhai frowned and hesitated for a moment before replying. It is said that the coffin-carrying man is guarding a shocking secret. Whoever can understand this secret will be able to control a great deal of power. Yang Kai grinned meaningfully. There was no wind without a hole. Although Duanhai didn't know what kind of secret the coffin-carrying man was guarding, in a sense, what he said wasn't wrong. The ancient demon clan was indeed a huge force. However, this clan was not something anyone could enslave. If honored guest Yang knows, can you reveal a thing or two? Duanhai asked curiously. Yang Kai shook his head. You're asking the wrong person, I really don't know. Brother. Shu Qi obviously lost his patience and called out as he stared at Duanhai inquiringly. Duanhai nodded slightly and said solemnly, Honored guest Yang, I apologize for offending you. Shu Qi grinned and walked over, his voice cold as ice, refusing a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Once this old master's soul-searching technique is used, your soul may be damaged and you may become an idiot. Pray for yourself. Yang Kai showed a panicked expression at the right time. Shu Qi saw this and his expression became even more proud. Walking up to Yang Kai, Shu Qi opened his hand and placed it above Yang Kai's head, his second-order transcendent spiritual energy bursting out. In an instant, Yang Kai's expression changed. Yang Kai had originally thought that this was an opportunity. His opponent had imprisoned his Yuan Qi, but in terms of spiritual power, Yang Kai was confident that he was not inferior to anyone. As long as Shu Qi's soul dared to break into his knowledge sea, Yang Kai could make him pay with his life. The great demon god's demon eye of annihilation was something even Saint Realm masters couldn't resist, let alone a mere second-order transcendent like Shu Qi. After killing Shu Qi and using his demon god transformation, Yang Kai had a chance to break through the seal on his body. With only Duanhai left as a transcendent, Yang Kai was confident he could escape. However, when Shu Qi attacked, Yang Kai found that his opponent's soul did not rush into his knowledge sea. Instead, Shu Qi's spiritual energy intertwined, forming an invisible vortex that produced a huge suction force that tried to pull Yang Kai's soul out of his knowledge sea. His sea of consciousness instantly became turbulent. Waves rolled and tumbled, becoming extremely restless. An indescribable pain spread through his body, causing Yang Kai's face to contort in an instant, blue veins bulging on his forehead as his bones creaked. This was a pain that came from his soul, one that was thousands of times more intense than any physical pain. Tchem. Shu Qi was also a little surprised, sneering as he said, Don't try to resist, the more you resist, the more pain you'll feel. Obediently release your soul's defenses and allow me to extract your memories so you won't have to endure such pain. Shu Qi's words seemed to contain an invisible force that compelled Yang Kai to act according to his intentions. Perceiving this, Yang Kai became even more cautious. Stubborn fool. Shu Qi was furious and increased the output of his spiritual energy, causing the suction force he was exerting to become much stronger. Although Yang Kai's soul was comparable to a transcendence, there was still a gap between it and Shu Qi's, and there was also Duanhai glaring at him like a tiger watching its prey. If this stalemate continued, it would only be a matter of time before Shu Qi succeeded. Considering all this, Yang Kai suddenly gave up on resisting and instead released his spiritual energy, transforming it into an invisible attack that shot towards Shu Qi. Shu Qi laughed and shouted, "You overestimate yourself. Junior brother, be careful." Duanhai's expression changed as he shouted anxiously. At that moment, he suddenly noticed a scorching hot aura that caused him to involuntarily feel a sense of crisis. Hurriedly retreating, he opened up some distance between him and Yang Kai who, a blazing hot spark suddenly burst out and Shu Qi's smug and ferocious expression instantly froze on his face as he clutched his head and screamed in pain. Conflagrated knowledge see? Duanhai's eyes bulged as he stared at Yang Kai incredulously. Shu Qi's screams only lasted for a moment before he recovered. At that moment, he had been caught off guard and Yang Kai's conflagrated knowledge sea had burned his soul, causing him some damage. Fortunately, his spiritual energy was much stronger than Yang Kai's, otherwise, his fate would have been dire. Recovering from his shock, Shu Qi broke out in a cold sweat. He had almost failed miserably. "Honored guest Yang, you actually have a conflagrated knowledge see?" Duanhai's expression was extremely complicated as he stared at Yang Kai and asked in a low voice. Yang Kai's eyes remained indifferent as he stared at the two of them with hatred and resentment, not answering. "Why didn't you say so earlier?" Duanhai looked extremely annoyed. "If you had said you had a conflagrated knowledge see, I would have, aha." Saying so, he slowly shook his head and sighed. If he had known that Yang Kai was an alchemist with a conflagrated knowledge see, Duanhai would never have offended him so easily and tried to inquire about the secret of the coffin-carrying man from him. After all, that secret was only a legend. Whether the coffin-carrying man was actually guarding an amazing treasure or not, Duanhai was simply gambling. However, an alchemist with a conflagrated knowledge see was a huge asset. In today's world, the top alchemist, the Old Man of Heaven's Keep, had achieved what he had today because he possessed a conflagrated knowledge see. The Old Man of Heaven's Keep had supreme prestige among the human, monster, and demon races. Anyone who saw him had to treat him with respect. If he had known that Yang Kai also had a conflagrated knowledge see like the Old Man of Heaven's Keep, Duanhai would have done everything in his power to win him over and make him join Bright Thunder Spirit religion. Even if he had to hand over the position of Great Elder, Duanhai would not hesitate. What an alchemist with a conflagrated knowledge see represented, every master in Tongxian realm knew. At this moment, Duanhai was filled with regret and annoyance. "Brother, what's done is done, it's unrealistic to try to make peace with him now." Shu Qi stared at Yang Kai angrily. After suffering such a small loss, he didn't dare to use soul-searching again. A conflagrated knowledge see was not something he could easily touch. Duanhai glared at Shu Qi coldly, wishing he could slap this junior brother to death. Speaking of which, when he invited Yang Kai back that day, Duanhai was also in a good mood. He felt that Yang Kai had a bright future and wanted to vigorously cultivate him. It was precisely because of Shu Qi's persuasion that Duanhai had taken a step back. Now that things had reached this point, there was no possibility of resolving the situation. "I didn't know he had a conflagrated knowledge see," Shu Qi said with a depressed expression. "If I had known, there's no need to say anything." Duanhai shook his head helplessly before turning to look at Yang Kai and saying, "Honored guest Yang, you won't forgive us for what we did today, right? Let me go and I'll pretend nothing happened today, how about it?" Yang Kai's mouth curled into a subtle grin. Duanhai slowly shook his head and stretched out his hand, sending out a few strands of energy that wrapped around Yang Kai like ropes, saying regretfully, "Forgive me for this offense." Inside a dungeon, Yang Kai was imprisoned. This dungeon was made of a special type of ore and a mysterious power flowed through it. From time to time, some exquisite runes would flash across its surface. This was a dungeon large enough to hold a transcendent realm master, so by placing Yang Kai here, Duanhai and Shu Qi weren't worried that he would try to escape. Yuan Qi was still imprisoned. Yang Kai tried several times to break free, but each time he failed. Every time he tried to use Yuan Qi, he would feel a stabbing pain all over his body, making him feel unbearable. Although he was in a difficult situation, Yang Kai didn't show any signs of panic. He had experienced worse situations than this before. He had brushed shoulders with death several times, but each time, He had found an opportunity to turn the situation around and survive. There was always a way out. Yang Kai firmly believed in this and simply waited for the right opportunity. Moreover, Duan Hai and Shu Qi didn't have any intention of killing him. After learning that Yang Kai possessed a conflagrated knowledge sea, their attitude towards him had inadvertently changed. They probably didn't know what they should do now. If they killed him, they would be reluctant to do so, but if they kept him alive, it would also be troublesome. A few days later, Yang Kai had been living in the dark dungeon, unable to see the light of day. On this day, with a heavy sound, the door to the dungeon opened and light poured in. Yang Kai squinted his eyes and looked out, his expression suddenly becoming playful. A tall and beautiful figure slowly walked in from the outside and stopped in front of the dungeon, her beautiful eyes staring towards Yang Kai with a complicated expression. Ji Meng. After staring at each other for a long time, Ji Meng squatted down and put some of the things she had brought into the dungeon before saying, "I brought you some food. Although these aren't necessities, they were all carefully prepared by me, so they should taste quite good. Duan Hai told you about me?" Yang Kai tilted his head and looked at her, an inexplicable smile on his face. Ji Meng nodded. "What did he want you to do?" "Convince you." Ji Meng replied in a deep voice, "In the spirit religion, only I am familiar with you, so only I can come." "Then what do you want to do?" "Convince you." "Good, since you've come forward, I'll reluctantly agree. You go and tell Duan Hai that I'm willing to join Bright Thunder Spirit Religion." Yang Kai grinned. Ji Meng shook her head. "Even if you agree, he won't believe you. Do you think he's a child?" Chapter 681. Inside the dungeon, Ji Meng stared at Yang Kai with a faint expression. Yang Kai chuckled. "Since he won't believe me so easily, how will he win me over? I can agree to any of his conditions now, but as long as I leave this place, I can go back on my word at any time. Yes, that's why I need to work hard to make sure you don't go back on your word." Ji Meng smiled reluctantly. "I am a disciple of the spirit religion and Thunder Light sect is my sect. I hope you don't blame me." Yang Kai looked at her indifferently. He really wasn't in a position to blame Ji Meng, but from his point of view, this woman was an enemy. Towards his enemies, Yang Kai had never been soft-hearted. Perceiving Yang Kai's coldness, Ji Meng felt bitter and tried to persuade him. "Why are you so insistent? Although I don't know what Elder Duan wants from you, as long as you cooperate, he definitely won't treat you unfairly. He imprisoned you but didn't torture you, nor did he kill you, which is enough to show his sincerity." "He is indeed sincere," Yang Kai said sarcastically. "Why don't you compromise? As long as you compromise, it will be good for you, for Elder Duan, and for me," Ji Meng softly persuaded. "Good for you." Yang Kai's expression became playful. "Did Duan Hai promise you a lot of conditions?" Ji Meng didn't answer but instead took out a green jade bottle from her sleeve and opened it, releasing a white mist visible to the naked eye. Ji Meng gently blew on it and the white mist quickly rushed into the dungeon and diffused around Yang Kai. Yang Kai looked at her vigilantly and held his breath, but the white mist still penetrated his pores and entered his body. Faintly, Yang Kai felt that something was wrong. His blood flow had increased a lot, his heartbeat was stronger than before, and there was even a faint sound in his mind. Ji Meng blushed and explained, "This is the 7 emotions and 6 desires mist, a very strong aphrodisiac." "What do you want?" Yang Kai laughed. "You're not going to force yourself on me, are you?" For a beautiful woman to use an aphrodisiac on him, this was truly a strange story. "That's right. Elder Duan said that as long as I can bear you a child, you can walk out of here." Ji Meng faintly looked at Yang Kai. Yang Kai's expression sank as he instantly understood Duan Hai's sinister intentions. He knew that he couldn't control Yang Kai, so he resorted to this despicable method. Even a vicious tiger would not eat its own cubs. As long as Yang Kai had a descendant and was in his hands, he was not afraid that Yang Kai would not obey. Although the investment cycle was very long, he could afford to wait. In just a moment, the white fog that had filled the air around Yang Kai was completely absorbed by his body. Gradually, Yang Kai's eyes turned red and his breathing became somewhat heavy as he stared towards Ji Meng outside the cell, his eyes filled with a strong sense of aggression. Being stared at by him like this, Ji Meng couldn't help feeling a little shy as she fidgeted uncomfortably, but she didn't make too many movements and just quietly waited for the aphrodisiac to take effect. Do you like me? Are you willing to entrust your life to me? Yang Kai struggled to remain sober as he stared at Ji Meng coldly. It's not that I like you. Ji Meng slowly shook her head. We aren't very familiar with each other, but entrusting myself to you is a good choice. You are an alchemist with a bright future ahead of you, while I am just an ordinary disciple of the spirit religion. If I want to stand out, I can only rely on the man I choose. You think too much. Yang Kai grinned. Even if I want you, I won't treat you well in the future. Maybe I'll even beat you. Ji Meng's tender body trembled as she said with a sad expression, then I accept. Unreasonable. Yang Kai shook his head, the only trace of goodwill he had for her completely shattered. You shouldn't be able to hold on any longer, right? Ji Meng bit her thin lips and shouted, Elder Duan, open the door. The door of the cell suddenly flashed with light and the barrier around it was instantly broken. Ji Meng pushed the door open and walked in, arriving in front of Yang Kai and bending down, she quietly looked at him. An intoxicating fragrance filled the air and under the influence of this woman's aura, Yang Kai seemed to show signs of going crazy, his eyes flashing like a wild beast. Ji Meng was a little scared, but she still suppressed the discomfort in her heart, closed her eyes, and pressed her red lips against Yang Kai's. Her breathing became chaotic as Ji Meng slowly closed her eyes and blushed. Just as their lips were about to touch, Ji Meng suddenly cried out and quickly opened her eyes. Her neck was gripped by Yang Kai's hand, but the eyes of this man in front of her were clear and his breathing was steady. There were no signs of him being affected by the aphrodisiac. He was looking at her with eyes full of disgust and disdain, his expression cold. Women should have more self-respect, Yang Kai said coldly. Ji Meng struggled and finally broke free from Yang Kai's grip, quickly leaving the cell, gasping for breath, a look of fear still lingering on her face as she stared at Yang Kai in disbelief. I have come into contact with too many women who cultivate seduction arts, and you want to make me fall in love with a mere aphrodisiac? Elder Duan, your method is a bit clumsy. Yang Kai stared at a certain spot in the void and sneered. Outside the dungeon, Duan Hai, who was using his divine sense to investigate the situation inside, suddenly frowned. Yang Kai, I. Ji Meng opened her mouth and stammered. If you don't want to die, scram. Yang Kai stared at her indifferently, his expression cold. Ji Meng suddenly looked a little dazed and struggled for a long time before covering her face and leaving. Brother, isn't that little brat a bit too strange? That 7 emotions 6 pleasures missed was something I spent a great deal of effort to arrange, even a transcendent couldn't resist it, so how could he be fine? Outside the dungeon, Shu Qi showed a surprised expression. Duan Hai's expression also became gloomy, not knowing what to do. Yang Kai being so stubborn made him feel somewhat helpless. Brother, it would be better to take him to the Wind Eye, Shu Qi suggested in a low voice. Wind Eye. Duan Hai frowned. You want to use the power of the Wind Eye to blow out his soul? Shu Qi nodded heavily. It looks like we have no way to obtain him, but since that's the case, obtaining his soul isn't a bad idea. Not to mention his memories of the coffin-carrying man, just his conflagrated knowledge can be preserved and left for those who are fated to absorb it. Perhaps one of my spirit religion's disciples will be lucky enough to swallow his conflagrated knowledge. Duan Hai's eyes lit up as he thought about it carefully, secretly feeling that this method was indeed feasible. With a plan in mind, Duan Hai didn't hesitate and nodded, then let's do that, but we still need to report to Religion Master about using the power of the Wind Eye. After we succeed, it won't be too late to report to him. Religion Master will definitely be very happy. Good, you go make some preparations first. I'll bring that little brat over later. Duan Hai waved his hand. Shu Qi nodded heavily before flying off with a look of excitement. After thinking for a while outside the dungeon, Duan Hai pushed open the door and walked in, opened the cell door, and without any explanation, picked up Yang Kai. Yang Kai remained indifferent and simply closed his eyes to rest. Honored guest Yang, since you don't know how to appreciate kindness, don't blame this old master for not giving you face, Duan Hai said as he flew towards the location of the Wind Eye. Yang Kai grinned and asked, where is Elder Duan taking me? My Bright Thunder Spirit religion has several great foundations. The place we are heading to now is a wind eye that contains the power of the wind. Many disciples of the religion who cultivate wind attribute secret arts and martial skills choose to cultivate there to comprehend the mysteries of the wind. In addition to this, My Bright Thunder Spirit religion also has a thunder eye that is similar to the wind eye, but even this old master doesn't dare to get too close to it because the power it emits is not something humans can resist. Even a third-order transcendent soul will be blown away by this wind eye. Yang Kai's face sank as he suddenly realized that the situation had taken a turn for the worse. If you regret it now, it's not too late. As long as you can marry Jimeng and give birth to a child, I will recognize you as a member of my spirit religion and will definitely treat you well in the future. Duanhai made a final attempt to persuade him. What do you think? Not good. Yang Kai shook his head, secretly taking a deep breath as he considered whether he should take advantage of this opportunity to display his demon god transformation and break free from Duanhai's shackles in one fell swoop to escape. However, in the other party's domain, Yang Kai wasn't confident he could succeed. Once he failed, he would never have the opportunity to try again. While he was hesitating, Yang Kai suddenly felt a wisp of ethereal energy appear around him. It was the power of the wind. Yang Kai had never felt this kind of energy before, and from his back and shoulder blades, a sharp pain once again spread through his body. Faintly, Yang Kai also felt a sense of excitement and joy. Yang Kai's expression changed as he quickly suppressed the thoughts in his heart and stared into the distance. In the distance, a huge vortex visible to the naked eye was slowly rotating, filling the surrounding space with ethereal wind energy. The closer one got to the vortex, the more abundant the wind energy became. Isn't it spectacular? Duanhai's face showed a look of pride. It is precisely because of the wind eye and thunder eye that my Bright Thunder Spirit religion was able to take root here. This place can be considered one of my Bright Thunder Spirit religion's restricted areas. Except for some permitted disciples, no one is allowed to set foot here. Those disciples who cultivate here can obtain twice the result with half the effort and obtain great improvements. Yang Kai nodded secretly. This kind of heavenly manifestation was indeed spectacular. It was not man-made, but rather because of some coincidental factors, the power of the heavens and earth was constantly being released here over the course of many years. As they spoke, the two quickly approached the vortex. Shu Qi had been waiting here for a long time, and when he saw Duanhai bring Yang Kai over, he excitedly said, "The disciples have been dispersed. Brother, we can begin." Duanhai slowly nodded before staring at Yang Kai and saying, "Honored guest Yang, you still have one last chance to choose. Once you enter that wind eye, I cannot guarantee your safety." "No need," Yang Kai grinned. "Courting death." Shu Qi coldly snorted. Duanhai took a deep breath and said, "If that's the case, then go." Saying so, he quickly flew forward with Yang Kai. Soon, the two of them approached the location of the wind eye. Even someone as strong as Duanhai had no choice but to rely on Yuan Qi to resist the destructive force of the wind eye. Chapter 682. About 1,000 meters away from the eye of the storm, Duanhai paused and glanced over at Yang Kai regretfully. Just as he was about to open his mouth to say something, Yang Kai suddenly wore a vicious expression and declared, "If I can escape this disaster, your Thunder Light sect can only wait for my revenge." Duanhai's face went cold and no longer hesitated, throwing Yang Kai into the huge eye of the storm. Duanhai didn't know if it was an illusion or not, but the moment before Yang Kai's figure disappeared into the eye of the storm, he seemed to have seen a sly smile appear on his face. Shu Qi caught up and stared towards the eye of the storm with a look of anticipation. "Brother, are you a little worried?" Shu Qi suddenly asked. Duanhai nodded slightly. "I'm still a little concerned about what Old Man Du said to me before. He shouldn't have any background. At this point, if he really had one, he would have definitely reported it. He's not a fool. Old Man Du should have made a mistake," Shu Qi persuaded. "That's true," Duanhai smiled lightly. Duanhai smiled faintly. "However, it is true that we have destroyed a rare talent. We should carefully consider how to explain this to Old Man Du if he really asks. Just say he's in retreat. I think with Old Man Du's status, it's impossible for him to personally come to our Thunder Light sect to ask for him. After a few years, When the limelight dies down, I think old man Du will forget about him. That's a good idea, Du and Hai sighed lightly. Du and Hai sighed slightly. Let's wait a few days. This little brat's soul is extremely strong. In my opinion, it's not inferior to an ordinary transcendence. Even in this wind eye, he should be able to last a few days. After his soul is blown away, we can collect it and pry into his hidden secrets. We'll listen to brother, Shu Qi said excitedly. The two of them stood in place and waited for less than an hour before Du and Hai suddenly frowned, turned around, and coldly asked, "Why is a disciple here?" Shu Qi also wore a displeased expression. "I've already ordered this place to be closed off for the time being. No one is allowed to trespass. Is this disciple deaf or blind?" Saying so, he impatiently said, "I'll go take a look." Du and Hai nodded slightly. Shu Qi displayed his movement skill and flew away, but a moment later, he returned with a strange look on his face and said to Du and Hai, "Brother, Religion Master has ordered you to meet him. That disciple is here to deliver the order." "Sect Master?" Du and Hai was startled when he heard this but quickly adjusted his expression and hurriedly said, "Then I'll go take a look, you wait here." "Brother, don't worry. I will keep a tight watch." Du and Hai quickly left and flew over to the disciple who had issued the order, wrapping him up and flying towards one of Bright Thunder Spirit Religion's mountain peaks. This was the place where the Religion Master of Bright Thunder Spirit Religion usually rested. It was very quiet and had rich world energy aura, making it one of the best peaks in Bright Thunder Spirit Religion. "Did Religion Master say why he wanted to see me?" As they flew, Du and Hai asked the disciple. Disciple doesn't know. Sect Master only said to ask Great Elder to make a trip there as soon as possible without delay. That disciple replied respectfully. Did Religion Master break through to the Saint Realm? Du and Hai suddenly thought of a possibility and asked excitedly. That shouldn't be the case. Disciple didn't feel any fluctuations when Religion Master broke through. Du and Hai couldn't help feeling a little puzzled, wondering what kind of urgent matter the Religion Master had for him to summon him at this critical juncture. Bright Thunder Spirit Religion's Religion Master, Xia Cheng Yin, was a third-order transcendent master, but he had been stuck at a bottleneck for more than 100 years and had been unable to comprehend the mysteries of the Saint Realm. For the past 10 years or so, he had been in secluded retreat, not even seeing Du and Hai once in a few months, but now he had suddenly summoned him. Was it because of that little brat? Du and Hai's heart clenched as he felt that his worries were unfounded and ridiculous. Shaking his head lightly, he no longer asked any more questions and simply led the disciple forward. Bright Thunder Spirit Religion, atop a mountain peak where the world energy aura was much richer than any of the other peaks, stood a single palace. This palace was built in a magnificent style and was quite imposing. This was the residence of Bright Thunder Spirit Religion's Religion Master, Xia Cheng Yin. At this moment, Xia Cheng Yin was sitting at the head of the table with a happy smile on his face, enthusiastically greeting the two people in front of him. Even if they had disturbed him while he was in retreat, Xia Cheng Yin didn't dare show the slightest displeasure and instead treated them with courtesy. After ordering a plate of fruit and wine to be served, Xia Cheng Yin began to speak. Old Man Du and Sungyin brother arriving together is truly an honor. Religion Master Xia is too polite. This old man is truly apologetic to have disturbed your cultivation. Du Wn seemed to have a lot on his mind, but after hearing these words, he reluctantly smiled, reached out, picked up a spirit fruit, and tossed it to Mina who was standing behind him. Mina had also come with Old Man Du this time. She was looking around curiously, as if she was waiting for someone. Seeing this, Xia Cheng Yin couldn't help feeling puzzled, wondering why Old Man Du and Soaring Heaven Sect's Tsungyin had come together. Concealing his thoughts, he smiled heartily and said, Old Man Du is too polite. If Old Man Du wishes to visit my Bright Thunder Spirit Religion, he can do so at any time. Not to mention that I am currently cultivating. Even if I am dead, I will climb out of my coffin and welcome you. Du Wan forced a smile but didn't say anything more. With his identity as a saint-grade alchemist, there was really no need for him to exchange pleasantries with Xia Cheng Yin. Although he was the Religion Master of Bright Thunder Spirit Religion, in front of Old Man Du, a third-order transcendent was still somewhat unqualified. Xia Cheng Yin glanced over at the meticulous Tsungyin and felt a headache coming on. Although Old Man Do's status was so high that ordinary people couldn't meet him, he had an amiable temperament and wasn't difficult to deal with. However, this madman from Soaring Heaven sect was completely different from Old Man Do. Xia Chengyin couldn't understand why this madman had come to visit his Bright Thunder Spirit religion. Could it be that someone in the religion had offended him? If that was the case, it was likely this madman would have turned Bright Thunder Spirit religion upside down. Each of Soaring Heaven sect's 4 great madmen was a third-order transcendent, comparable to Xia Chengyin in terms of strength, and one of them was even a Saint Realm martial ancestor. It could be said that even in Tongxian Realm, Soaring Heaven sect was a great force that Bright Thunder Spirit religion couldn't compare to. Offending such a great force, the only end for Bright Thunder Spirit religion was complete annihilation. In a one-on-one fight, Xia Chengyin couldn't guarantee that he could beat this Tsungyin. Gently coughing, Xia Chengyin asked, "Brother Tsungyin, has anyone in my spirit religion offended you recently?" "No." Tsungyin's expression was dull, his words as precious as gold. "Then why is Brother Tsungyin?" Xia Chengyin frowned slightly as he turned his eyes to Old Man Do, a look of inquiry on his face. Old Man Do laughed dryly. "One does not visit a temple without a cause. This time, I have come with Tsungyin because I have an important matter to discuss." "Old Man Do, please speak frankly." Xia Chengyin's expression became serious. "We're here to find someone." "Find someone?" "Ien, we're looking for a spirit-grade alchemist. Your spirit religion's elder Duan Hai should know where he is. 2 months ago, it was Duan Hai who took him away from my alchemist guild and hired him as an honored elder of your spirit religion." "So that's how it is." Xia Chengyin suddenly understood. Xia Chengyin suddenly understood. No wonder they had asked to see Duan Hai as soon as they arrived here, causing Xia Chengyin to be on edge. After figuring out the whole story, Xia Chengyin couldn't help relaxing and smiled. "You should have told me earlier about such a trivial matter. Since he is my spirit religion's honored guest, Duan Hai will definitely treat him with courtesy and treat him well." "Good, I've been looking for him for almost 2 months now." Tsungyin heard this and nodded with satisfaction. For the past 2 months, Tsungyin had been searching for Yang Kai in Grand Boulder City, relying on the vague image his ancestral founder had left in his mind, but he had never been able to find him. Finally, by chance, he asked the Alchemist Guild and learned that Yang Kai was no longer in Grand Boulder City. Tsungyin was filled with annoyance. His ancestral founder had asked him to do such a small thing, yet he had still failed to accomplish it after 2 months. Immediately, he blamed Thunder Light for taking away Yang Kai, but although he didn't say anything, his cold eyes revealed an unpleasant aura. Soaring Heaven sect has a strong heritage. How could it lack a spirit-grade alchemist? "Brother Tsungyin, if you come here to snatch someone from me, this religion master will not agree." Xia Chengyin smiled and shook his head, his words not malicious, simply expressing his attitude. Tsungyin heard this and said coolly, "It's not me who wants to snatch someone from you. It's my ancestral founder who wants to see him." Xia Chengyin immediately shut up. Du Wn shook his head and sighed, clearly annoyed. Although he had long guessed that Yang Kai's background was extremely strong, he hadn't expected that even Soaring Heaven sect would pay attention to him. When Tsungyin came to the Alchemist Guild, Old Man Do couldn't wait to find a hole to crawl into. If he had known that Yang Kai had a relationship with Soaring Heaven sect, how could he have recommended him into Bright Thunder Spirit religion? What a stupid thing to do. It seemed that Soaring Heaven sect's ancestral founder had some kind of relationship with this little brat's sect. After learning that he had entered the world for life experience, he wanted to take care of him. Old Man Do thought to himself, feeling that this was likely the case. He hasn't come yet. Why is he so slow? Mina finished eating the spirit fruit and stared at the door, muttering with some dissatisfaction. Xia Chengyin chuckled, "Little girl, don't worry, Duan Hai should be here soon." "Who wants to see Duan Hai?" "I want to see Yang Kai. That bastard was so cruel as to leave me alone in the Alchemist Guild. This time I must teach him a lesson," Mina said angrily. Xia Chengyin couldn't help feeling embarrassed. "Don't be rude." Old Man Do saw Xia Chengyin's embarrassment and scolded him. Mina pouted. At that moment, an aura quickly approached from the distance. "He's here." Xia Chengyin smiled lightly. A moment later, Duanhai's voice came from outside the door. "Religion Master, Duanhai has come under orders." "Come in," Xia Chengyin called out. Duanhai nodded and stepped inside. After entering the hall, he was about to salute when he suddenly saw Tsungyan and Du Wn sitting nearby. Duanhai panicked and couldn't wait to turn around and flee. Tsungyan appearing here was already very unusual. As one of Soaring Heaven sect's 4 great madmen, Duanhai was well aware of his cruel methods and powerful cultivation, so Duanhai had always maintained a respectful distance from this person. However, Old Man Du's appearance here was even more surprising. Du Wan was a saint-grade alchemist. For more than 10 years, he had been sitting in Grand Boulder City, never taking a single step out of the Alchemist Guild. Each of the 4 nearby great forces had warmly invited him to teach their alchemists, but besides Soaring Heaven sect, who had succeeded twice, whether it was Luo Sheng sect, Ancient Moon Cave Heaven, or Thunder Light sect, none of them had been able to invite him. Chapter 683. What frightened Duanhai the most was that he had brought Yang Kai back to Thunder Light sect from Du Wan. Just now, Shu Qi had told him that a person of Old Man Du's status was unlikely to come to Thunder Light sect, but now, Du Wan had appeared in front of him. Duanhai's heart was in turmoil as he tried to maintain his composure, laughing as he stepped forward and bowed. "Greetings, Old Man Du." Cupping his fists to the Tsungyan, Duanhai said, "Brother Tsungyan." Du Wan nodded slightly. Xia Chengyin said, "Elder Duan has worked hard, sit down." Duanhai sat down, his expression a little unnatural because this Tsungyan from Soaring Heaven sect had been staring at him with a pair of hawk-like eyes, making him feel a little uneasy. Seemingly aware of this, the Tsungyan's eyes became sharper. Coughing dryly, Duanhai asked softly, "May I ask why Religion Master has summoned this subordinate here?" "It's nothing important," Xia Chengyin smiled. "Old Man Du and Brother Tsungyan have come to Thunder Light sect to find someone." "Find someone?" The uneasiness in Duanhai's heart became even stronger, his face twitching slightly as he forced a smile. "Who are you looking for?" He had a bad feeling about this. "The young man you took away from the Alchemist Guild 2 months ago." Du Wan took over, his expression friendly. Duanhai wanted to cry but had no tears to shed as he secretly cursed Shu Qi in his heart. A character like Old Man Du had actually come to Thunder Light sect to ask for someone, causing him to be at a loss for what to do. Although his heart was flustered, Duanhai didn't show it on his face, his thoughts turning sharply as he tried to think of a way to resolve the current problem. "Elder Duan?" Old Man Du found that Duanhai seemed to be lost in thought and couldn't help frowning. "Ah, yes." Duanhai quickly adjusted his expression. "Is that little friend doing well in Thunder Light sect?" Du Wan asked with concern. "Very well. I have sent a female disciple with excellent aptitude and temperament to serve him for the past 2 months. Honored guest Yang has also refined a number of high-quality spirit pills for my spirit religion. Naturally, little friend Yang's understanding of the alchemic way far surpasses even this old master's." Hearing this, Xia Chengyin and Tsungyan both stared at Du Wan in amazement, their eyes overflowing with light. "This old master is not exaggerating, this is the truth. I think little friend Yang's alchemy skills must have been taught by a great master." Duanhai's face paled. From Du Wan's words, he realized that he had overlooked a problem. Did that kid really have a very strong background? Or was he the disciple of some top-notch alchemist? Otherwise, how could Elder Du give him such a high evaluation? In that instant, Duanhai's hands and feet were cold as he broke out in a cold sweat. "This honored guest is so amazing." Xia Chengyin's interest was piqued, and he said excitedly, "To be able to hire such a person, it is the blessing of our God's sec." Duanhai, he could not afford to neglect the other party. "We must provide him with the best conditions in the future. Otherwise, the Tsungyan brothers will steal him from us." Duanhai's mouth twitched as he let out a hollow laugh. "Subordinate will handle it." "So where is he now?" "Elder Du and the Tsungyan brothers want to see him." "Duanhai, go invite him over." Xia Chengyin's eyes flashed with expectation. He also wanted to see Yang Kai. He wanted to see what kind of person he was that he could receive such praise from Elder Du. Duanhai's forehead couldn't help dripping with sweat as he sat still. "Why aren't you going?" Xie Chengyin was a little displeased. He scolded lightly. Religion master. Duanhai's expression was difficult as he stammered, right now? I'm afraid it's not convenient for him. What's not convenient? The Tsangyan, who had not spoken until now, suddenly asked in a cold voice, his expression not very friendly. Duanhai's evasiveness and tone before were quite unnatural. This made the Tsangyan quickly realize something unusual, narrowing his eyes as he stared at Duanhai. A trace of light flashed across his eyes as he asked coldly, could it be he had some kind of accident? No, he didn't have any kind of accident. Duanhai quickly waved his hand, it's just that right now it's really not convenient. Duanhai. Xie Chengyin looked displeased. What are you doing? Elder Du and the Tsangyan brothers came here in person just to see that honored guest, yet you're still making excuses? This is not how my spirit religion treats its guests. Religion master, where is he now? Xie Chengyin asked impatiently. Knowing that if he continued to make excuses, it would only make the situation worse, Duanhai grit his teeth and said, he's at the Wind Eye. How could he be at the Wind Eye? Du Wan's expression changed. Bright Thunder Spirit Religion's Wind Eye and Thunder Eye, Du Wn had naturally heard of them. They were the ideal cultivation holy lands for a wind and thunder attribute cultivator. But why would Yang Kai, an alchemist, go to the Wind Eye? He said before that he needed to refine a spirit pill and needed the power of the Wind Eye, so he asked me to take him there. Duanhai's mind flashed as he thought of a good excuse. The Tsangyan turned his eyes to Du Wan, a look of inquiry on his face. Du Wan nodded slightly. It is possible. When alchemists perform alchemy, they can often use the power of the world to achieve twice the result with half the effort, but this requires very profound skills and methods, otherwise, it would be impossible to manipulate the power of the world. This little friend is really amazing. Duanhai couldn't help breathing a sigh of relief, thinking that his excuse was really a stroke of genius. Since he is at the Wind Eye, why don't the two of you stay in my spirit religion for a few days and wait for that honored guest to come out? Xie Chengyin turned to Old Man Du and the Tsangyan and asked. Old Man Du smiled lightly. This old master doesn't care. Tsangyan, what do you think? I want to see him now. The Tsangyan said coldly, his tone filled with indifference. Xie Chengyin chuckled. Tsangyan brother, you must have heard that the Wind Eye and Thunder Eye are restricted areas of my spirit religion. Outsiders are not allowed to enter. If you go there now, you may disturb that Tsangyan guest while he is performing alchemy. How about brother wait a few days? What bullshit restricted areas? Kang Yang said in a disdainful tone. After he finished speaking, he released his powerful divine sense and didn't waste any more words with Lei Guang and Yang Kai. Getting up, he walked out of the hall and flew directly towards the Wind Eye. Hey, brother Tsangyan. Duanhai was shocked and wanted to stop him, but it was already too late. This uncle is quite impatient. Mina was eager to see the world burn, so when she saw the Tsangyan fly away, her face filled with worship as she urged Du Wan, Old Man Du, let's also go. Du Wan glanced over at Xie Chengyin. The latter's expression was gloomy. The Tsangyan not giving him any face made him very angry, but since the other party had already left, even if he was angry, there was nothing he could do, so after hesitating for a moment, he said, then let's go and take a look. Saying so, he also stood up. Then I'll have to trouble religion master Xie, Du Wan said apologetically. Old Man Du is too polite. Xie Chengyin naturally didn't dare show any disrespect to this saint-grade alchemist. A group of several people hurriedly followed behind the Tsangyan, quickly approaching the Wind Eye. Duanhai's face was pale and his heart was a mess. He had thought that he could delay for a few days and use this time to at least escape from Bright Thunder Spirit Religion and avoid this disaster, but he had not expected to fail at the last moment. If he tried to leave now, he would only expose himself and arouse suspicion. Following behind Xie Chengyin and Du Wan, Duanhai's mood was complicated, secretly feeling that this time they were in big trouble. Not long after, everyone arrived at the location of the Wind Eye, with the Tsangyan taking the lead and being the first to arrive. Looking at the vortex filled with rich wind attribute energy, the Tsangyan couldn't help showing a look of dread. This kind of destructive power made even him shrink back. Looking around, the Tsangyan couldn't find any trace of Yang Kai, causing his face to suddenly become ugly. Shu Qi, who had been left behind, was stunned, not knowing what had happened. After seeing Xia Chengyin and Du Wan, Shu Qi panicked, pretending to be calm as he stepped forward and bowed before asking Du Anhai, "Brother, what happened?" Old Man Du and brother Tsungyan came to see how honored guest Yang's pill refinement is progressing. Du Anhai replied casually. Shu Qi's eyes flashed as he instantly understood the meaning behind Du Anhai's words. Brother and junior brother had worked together for many years, and although they couldn't be said to be telepathic, occasionally a simple glance or a simple sentence was enough for the other to understand what he meant. "Where is he?" The Tsungyan turned his head and stared at Du Anhai coldly. Du Anhai opened his mouth but didn't know how to answer, quickly turning to Shu Qi and asking, "Junior brother, where is honored guest Yang? When I left, wasn't he still outside?" Shu Qi understood and replied, "He went inside. He said it was more convenient for him to perform alchemy there." "He went inside?" Everyone paled. How did he go inside? Old Man Du's lips trembled, not to mention his only a peak immortal ascension boundary cultivator. Even a third-order transcendent would die inside. How could you let him go inside? Shu Qi smiled and said, "I couldn't stop him." Honored guest Yang said not to worry, he had his own means to protect his life. This. Du Wan looked anxious. The Tsungyan didn't say anything as he released his powerful divine sense and rushed into the violent wind eye, but after only a breath of time, he couldn't help letting out a groan and retreating a few steps, his face going pale. He wanted to use his divine sense to investigate the situation inside the wind eye and inevitably suffered some damage. His eyes flashing, the Tsungyan stared coldly at Du Anhai and Shu Qi. Did he go in by himself or was he thrown in by you? Xia Chengyin frowned and angrily said, "What does brother Tsungyan mean by this? Do you think one of my spirit religion's elders would harm an honored guest?" The Tsungyan sneered coldly as his hawk-like eyes swept over Du Anhai and Shu Qi, his aura gradually becoming more and more dangerous. Du Anhai and Shu Qi didn't dare to look at him directly, both of them avoiding eye contact. Du Wan observed the situation and his old face couldn't help sinking as he recalled Du Anhai's repeated evasions and felt something was wrong. The people here were all masters among masters, so naturally they weren't stupid. Although Du Anhai and Shu Qi were singing the same tune and weaving a watertight lie, they were still able to see some clues. What the hell is going on? Xia Chengyin's expression became gloomy as he coldly asked the two elders, "Brother Tsungyan is questioning my spirit religion, explain it clearly to me." "Religion master is wise." Du Anhai shouted, "Honored guest Yang's alchemy skills are superb, we should be treating him well, how could we possibly harm him?" Chapter 684. Shu Qi also nodded. Yes, he really wanted to enter the wind eye. I tried my best to dissuade him, but he wouldn't listen. What could I do? Tsungyan's mouth twitched a few times before he put on a fake smile and said, "That would be best, otherwise, your Thunder Light sect will be destroyed." Xia Chengyin's expression became cold. "Tsungyan brother, this is my spirit religion's territory, please don't be too presumptuous." "Shut up, all of you." Du Wan shouted, suddenly learning that Yang Kai had entered the wind eye. Du Wan also felt uncomfortable. If he had known that he would encounter such a dangerous situation, he would never have allowed Yang Kai to come to Thunder Light sect as an honored guest. Right now, the safety of little friend Yang's life is the most important. "Tsungyan, what did you sense just now?" Du Wan turned to Tsungyan and asked. "He's still alive, but his aura is a bit chaotic. It doesn't look like he's performing alchemy," Tsungyan replied faintly. Du Wan's expression became ugly as he glanced over at Xia Chengyin. "Religion Master Xia, it seems that entrusting him to your spirit religion was not a wise choice. If he is lucky enough to come out safely, I will bring him back to the Alchemist Guild. I hope Religion Master Xia can understand." Xia Chengyin nodded with an ugly expression. Du Wan had already said so, even if he wanted to keep this alchemist alive, he was afraid he couldn't. Glaring at Du Anhai and Shu Qi, he ground his teeth and said, "You're the one who did this, yet you can't even keep an eye on him. I think you don't want to be elders anymore. It's his own fault." Shu Qi muttered. Du Anhai shook his head and sighed, only feeling that his luck was really bad. If Old Man Du and Tsungyan had come a few days earlier, this situation would not have happened, but right after he and Shuqi started fighting, these two had come to Bright Thunder Spirit religion. Was it his own bad luck or Yang Kai's? The group of people waited silently, no one speaking, the atmosphere becoming somewhat dignified. Shuqi and Duan Hai kept exchanging glances, both of them aware of the thorny situation. There was no way that the kid would be able to leave the storm eye alive, and now the question in front of them was, what would Du Wan and the Tsungyan take if the kid died? They really didn't know why the Tsungyan Empire would suddenly become involved in this matter. It didn't seem to have anything to do with Soaring Heaven sect. Inside the Wind Eye, Yang Kai, who had just been thrown in, immediately felt a burst of sharp pain all over his body. The ubiquitous wind blades were constantly cutting into his body, and in just a moment, he was covered in blood and his clothes were torn to shreds. Yuan Qi was imprisoned, and Yang Kai was unable to withstand the damage of the wind blades. He could only rely on the strength of his physical body to hold on. Yang Kai didn't rush to use his demon god transformation and instead focused his attention on his shoulder blade. There, the wind and thunder wings he had obtained from demon god citadel's Han Fei seemed to have been stimulated and were undergoing some unexpected changes. The extremely dense wind energy in the surroundings drilled into his back and was completely absorbed by the wind and thunder wings. Feeling a severe pain, Yang Kai's expression became one of pain and agony. It was as if he was being torn apart as the violent wind energy swept through his body, causing every inch of his flesh and blood to writhe. Pain and suffering. Yang Kai grit his teeth and didn't utter a single word, allowing the wind and thunder wings to absorb the surrounding wind energy. He faintly felt that this was an opportunity to refine the wind and thunder wings. Han Fei and Li Rong had told him that they didn't know when they had obtained this pair of wind and thunder wings, nor where they had come from. After passing through several hands, they had eventually fallen into Han Fei's hands. The two great commanders had tried many times to refine them but had never succeeded. When Duan Hai and Shuqi brought him to the edge of this storm eye, Yang Kai felt that the wind and thunder wings were very eager to absorb the surrounding wind energy, so he didn't resist and simply allowed Duan Hai to throw him in. Now it seemed that his guess was correct. The wind and thunder wings, which had been sealed away for a long time, seemed to have received a great deal of nourishment and become full of vitality. The speed at which they were swallowing the surrounding wind energy also increased, to the point where even with Yang Kai's powerful physique, he was unable to withstand it. His body was constantly being destroyed as the wind attribute energy that was pouring into his body raged. Not daring to hesitate, Yang Kai quickly took out the myriad drug milk from the black book space, put it into his mouth, and swallowed it. A warm feeling spread from his abdomen and soon spread throughout his body. The powerful restorative power of the myriad drug milk and the destructive power of the storm eye formed a difficult tug-of-war with Yang Kai's body as the battlefield. His physique was constantly being destroyed, then slowly growing back and restoring itself, becoming tougher and more powerful. Yang Kai endured with great difficulty and gradually became numb, no longer feeling the slightest pain. The speed at which the wind attribute energy was being swallowed by the wind and thunder wings became more and more terrifying. On Yang Kai's left shoulder, an invisible vortex seemed to appear, pulling in the rich surrounding wind energy and pouring it into his wind and thunder wings. The more wind attribute energy he absorbed, the more vitality his wind and thunder wings showed. From the outside, it seemed as if a small vortex had appeared in the huge storm eye, and this small vortex was like a black hole, pulling in the storm eye and swallowing it whole. The people outside who were paying attention to Yang Kai's life and death all showed surprised expressions, not knowing how such a change had occurred. The Wind Eye was one of Bright Thunder Spirit religion's restricted areas, the very foundation of their religion. Since its appearance until now, countless years had passed. Over the years, countless disciples who cultivated wind attribute martial skills and secret arts had obtained unimaginable benefits here, but no matter how many people tried to absorb the wind energy here, none of them were able to cause any changes to the Wind Eye, not even weakening it. But now, everyone clearly felt that the amount of wind energy in this place was being sucked away by some unknown force and was rapidly decreasing. This discovery caused the people from Bright Thunder Spirit religion to pale. If the power of the Storm Eye weakened, it would be a huge loss to Bright Thunder Spirit religion. Duan Hai, Did honored guest Yang say what kind of pill he was refining? Even now, Xia Chengyin still believed the words of his two elders and believed that the change in the storm eye was definitely caused by Yang Kai's alchemy. He didn't say. Du Enhai braced himself and replied. Old man Du, what do you think? Xia Chengyin turned to look at Du Wan. Du Wan's expression was gloomy. There is no pill that requires such a huge amount of energy. This isn't alchemy at all, it's more like cultivation. Cultivation? Xia Chengyin's expression froze. Cultivating inside the storm eye? Isn't he only a peak immortal ascension boundary cultivator? Don't ask this old master, I don't know either. Du Wan snorted, obviously unhappy that Yang Kai was in prison. Xia Chengyin looked embarrassed and didn't dare to say anything more. The destructive power contained in the storm eye made everyone here not dare to release their divine sense to investigate, so they could only wait quietly. After an unknown amount of time, the small vortex that had appeared in the storm eye gradually grew larger and larger, even showing signs of swallowing the storm eye. On top of that, the surrounding wind attribute energy was obviously not as strong as before. Religion Master, if we continue like this, the wind eye will be destroyed, Du Enhai quickly reacted and shouted. Xia Chengyin's face went pale as he stared silently towards the storm eye. How could he not know what the consequences would be if this continued? Once the storm eye was destroyed, it would be equivalent to destroying one of Bright Thunder Spirit Religion's foundations. I ask Religion Master to allow me and junior brother Shu Qi to intervene and stop this disaster. Du Enhai volunteered. How are you going to stop it? Xia Chengyin glanced at him strangely. Now we can only act and strangle honored guest Yang inside the storm eye. He must be using the name of alchemy to destroy the foundation of my Bright Thunder Spirit Religion. Du Enhai said sinisterly. Little friend Yang is not that kind of person. Du Wan coldly snorted. Don't you dare try. Tsang Yen also glared at him, a murderous intent flashing across his eyes. This is an internal matter of my spirit religion, isn't brother Tsang Yen meddling too much? Du Enhai said with some displeasure. This old master will not allow you to act so recklessly. If little friend Yang really suffers an accident because of your actions, this old master can guarantee that in the future, no alchemist will ever refine pills for your Bright Thunder Spirit Religion again. Du Wan stared deeply at Du Enhai. Du Enhai felt a headache coming on. He didn't care about Tsang Yen's attitude, but Du Wan's words carried a lot of weight. With his identity and status, he really could do such a thing. As long as he gave the order, all the alchemist-honored guests would immediately leave Bright Thunder Spirit Religion and avoid them like tigers. Old man Du, please calm down, this Du Enhai was just speaking casually. Xia Chengyin quickly expressed his stance. The consequences of angering a saint-grade alchemist were quite serious. At that moment, there was an obvious change in the huge wind eye as the vortex that had appeared inside it suddenly expanded. A huge suction force suddenly appeared, causing everyone to almost lose their footing, all of them using their yuan qi to resist as they stared intently at the changes in the wind eye. Inside the wind eye, Yang Kai suddenly felt the shackles placed on him by Du Enhai shatter and the yuan qi sealed in his meridians begin to flow rapidly. Not only that, but the flesh on his back and shoulder blades also began to squirm at an extremely fast speed, as if something was about to break out of his body. He had experienced this feeling once before when he obtained the wings of Yang inflammation. Calming his heart, Yang Kai didn't show any signs of panic, relaxing his mind and allowing the flesh on his back to squirm freely. Hua. A pair of broad and beautiful wings suddenly spread out from Kai Yang's back. At the same time, all of the pressure he was feeling instantly disappeared, and a kind of refreshing feeling spread throughout his body. The wind attribute energy surrounding him no longer seemed to be able to cause him any harm and instead made Yang Kai feel a sense of familiarity. The ethereal wind attribute energy lingered around his body, and Yang Kai was able to hear it clearly, allowing him to integrate himself into the wind. Glancing sideways, Yang Kai's eyes flashed. He found that his wings of Yang inflammation had undergone a significant change. The right half of his wing, as always, burned like a burning flame. However, the left half of his wing not only contained the power of true Yang Yuan Qi but also the power of the wind attribute. Even its color had become more beautiful and dazzling. The wind attribute energy in the wind eye continued to pour into the left half of his wing, and Yang Kai could clearly feel that he was rapidly becoming stronger. With a flap of his wings, a whirlwind formed and a series of wind blades formed, bombarding the wind eye. These whirlwinds and wind blades not only contained the power of the wind attribute but also the scorching heat of true Yang Yuan Qi. The combination of the two complemented each other and enhanced each other's lethality. Chapter 685. Bright Thunder Spirit Religion. In the forbidden area where the wind eye was located, a loud bang suddenly rang out, and immediately, the world energy around it became chaotic. Almost all of the Bright Thunder Spirit Religion's disciples noticed the anomaly and couldn't help looking over in surprise, not understanding what was going on. Soon, a violent wind blew from the direction of the forbidden area, causing trees to sway and houses to collapse. Within a 50-kilometer radius, all of Bright Thunder Spirit Religion's properties were reduced to a mess. Many of the Bright Thunder Spirit Religion's masters paled greatly as their hands and feet went cold. The people in the forbidden area were also stunned as they felt the destructive power of the world energy erupt, all of them circulating their secret arts to resist. The power that erupted from the eye of the storm was not only visible but also invisible soul-blowing winds. This was the power contained within the wind eye, but at this moment, it suddenly erupted outwards. This group of people was relatively close to the wind eye, so none of them had expected such a disaster to befall them. Duan Hai and Shu Qi were stunned for a moment before they screamed as the soul-blowing wind rushed into their knowledge seas, causing their souls to become unstable and their vision to blur. Xie Chengyin did not dare to show the slightest neglect and quickly used his own means to resist the damage to his soul caused by the soul-blowing wind. Tsangyan was about to protect Old Man Du and Mina as they retreated when Old Man Du calmly took out a blue stone. Holding this blue stone in his hand, he poured his Yuan Qi into it and soon formed a blue light curtain. "Tsangyan, come in," Old Man Du called out. Tsangyan quickly rushed into the light curtain, and as soon as he stepped into its protective range, the pressure on his soul suddenly disappeared. "Blue refining stone?" Tsangyan's eyes lit up as he spoke the name of this blue stone. "Old Man Du's foundation is quite good. Now is not the time to talk about this." Old Man Du smiled bitterly. "The wind blades are coming." Tsangyan nodded lightly and did not dare to neglect, quickly condensing his strength and sending all the wind blades flying. He knew that the cyan light screen created by the refined bluestone could only defend against attacks that came from the spirit. It had no defensive effect against physical attacks. Yang Kai had only heard of refined bluestone from rumors and knew that this thing was extremely precious. It was a product from the starry sky and was capable of defending against Saint Realm Master's divine sense attacks. It could be said that with such a piece of refined bluestone, he would not need to worry about his soul being damaged. However, this thing was very easy to damage, and after using it a few times, it would crumble into dust. Old Man Du had no choice but to use this stone's strength. He was not a Saint Realm Master, his cultivation first order transcendent realm. So long as he immersed himself in alchemic arts and alchemy, he had neglected his cultivation, his combat ability, combat power. He was only Saint Realm Master's realm masters. "Old Man Du!" Xie Chengyin anxiously shouted as he also came over. Old Man Du frowned, but still nodded lightly. He increased the output of power from his hands, and the light screen formed by the refined bluestone expanded a bit, barely allowing Xie Chengyin to squeeze in. The two third-order transcendent masters acted together, shielding Old Man Du and Mina behind them, deflecting all the incoming wind blades. Duan Hai and Shu Qi were both dizzy from the soul-blowing wind and were like headless flies tossing and turning in the midst of this violent storm. Soon, their bodies were covered in wounds and blood. Seeing this, Xie Chengyin anxiously asked, "Old Man Du, can you let them in as well? This old man is powerless. If I increase the output of my strength, I'm afraid this stone will shatter." Old Man Du slowly shook his head. Knowing that Du Wan was not lying, Xie Chengyin couldn't help sighing. Duan Hai and Shu Qi were two of his spirit religion's elders, so he naturally couldn't bear to see them die here. Hiding behind the light curtain formed by the refined blue stone, Xie Chengyin could only try his best to take care of them, neutralizing the wind blades that were attacking them while constantly calling out to them, trying to wake them up. However, none of his efforts had any effect. The power that should have been hidden inside the wind eye suddenly erupted, and Duan Hai and Shu Qi, both second-order transcendent masters, were unable to resist. A moment later, they fell into a pool of blood. Although they were still alive, if they were exposed to the soul-blowing wind blades for too long, their souls would sooner or later be blown away. Xie Chengyin watched anxiously, but there was nothing he could do. Suddenly, after an even more violent attack, everything calmed down, as if the eruption just now was the last of the wind eye's power. The refined bluestone in Old Man Du's hand also completed its mission at this moment. It shattered and fell from between his fingers. Yang Kai! Mina suddenly shouted in surprise, stretching out her jade finger and pointing towards the void. Everyone couldn't help shaking their spirits and looking up, only to see Yang Kai standing in the void, completely naked and covered in blood. His expression was indifferent, but from his physique, one could sense a terrifying aura radiating from him. Kang Yang's eyes narrowed as a grin appeared on his face, silently grinning. Yang Kai's appearance was quite consistent with the vague image in his mind, which meant that the person his ancestral founder was looking for was him. Where's the wind eye? Xie Chengyin was dumbfounded. He discovered that the wind eye that had existed in Bright Thunder spirit religion for countless years had actually disappeared. And here, there was no trace of wind attribute energy. This discovery made Xie Chengyin's face go ashen. The wind eye was a very precious existence to the Thunder Light sect. Without the wind eye, it meant that in the future, those disciples who cultivated wind attribute cultivation methods and martial skills would no longer be able to receive help from this place. They would no longer be able to comprehend the mysteries of the wind here. You bastard, can't you put on some clothes? Mina made a small trumpet with her hand, her face blushing as she stared up and down at Yang Kai's sturdy figure. Seeming to have heard her words, Kai Yang slowly opened his eyes and turned to look at her. His brow wrinkled slightly as he found that of the four people standing there, besides Old Man Du and Mina, he didn't recognize the other two. However, it was undeniable that the pressure these two gave him was stronger than even Duan Hai and Shu Qi. From the corner of his eyes, Yang Kai suddenly saw Duan Hai and Shu Qi lying moaning in a pool of blood, causing him to grin. His figure flickered as Yang Kai suddenly appeared beside Duan Hai and Shu Qi at a speed several times faster than before. So fast. Tsangyan and Xie Chengyin couldn't help exclaiming. Just now, they seemed to have felt a slight movement, a movement of the wind. Even with their strength, they had almost lost sight of Yang Kai's figure. As soon as he finished speaking, Yang Kai casually struck Duan Hai's neck. With a crisp crack, blood splattered as Duan Hai's head flew through the air. Xie Chengyin almost went crazy. Staring blankly at the head flying through the air with a pained expression on his face, he couldn't wrap his head around it for a moment. He never imagined that the person he had hired as an honored guest would actually kill the great elder of his Thunder Light sect. What's more, he hadn't even bothered to greet him. Chem. Tsangyan smiled mysteriously as he stared at Yang Kai, licking his lips. He suddenly found that the little brat his ancestral founder had asked him to find was quite similar to his own temperament. Seeing Yang Kai's murderous aura and about to attack the defenseless Shu Qi, Xie Chengyin roared, "Boy, you dare." Saying so, Xie Chengyin shot out like a bolt of lightning towards Yang Kai. No matter what, he couldn't allow Yang Kai to kill two of his elders right under his nose. Kang Yang grinned meaningfully, his figure flickering as he arrived in front of Xie Chengyin, blocking his path. Tsangyan, what is the meaning of this? Xie Chengyin glared at Tsangyan and asked coldly. Both of them were third-order transcendents, but facing this Tsangyan, he wasn't sure he could win. Nothing, but if you want to hurt him, you'll have to ask me first, Tsangyan said faintly. He has nothing to do with your soaring heaven sect. Tsangyan, don't go too far. Xie Chengyin's face twisted as he roared hysterically. Little friend, please show mercy. Du Wn also hurriedly shouted, hurriedly bringing Mina over to Yang Kai. Hearing Old Man Du's shout, Yang Kai frowned and quickly checked Shu Qi's current state, calming himself down and not continuing to kill him. Soon, Old Man Du and Mina arrived beside Yang Kai, Old Man Du letting out a light breath as he stared at Yang Kai with a complicated expression. During his time in the Alchemist Guild, Yang Kai had given him a very good impression, not the kind of person who would act recklessly, but Old Man Du couldn't understand why the other party had suddenly decided to kill the two elders from Thunder Light Sect. Old Man Du, Yang Kai greeted him indifferently before nodding to Mina. Mina's neck flushed red as she glanced over at Yang Kai before pursing her lips and looking away. Yang Kai didn't care though and instead stared at Tsung Yin. He didn't know why this person would help him, nor did he have any memories of this person, so naturally, they didn't have any friendship. While observing the situation, Yang Kai took out a set of robes and put them on, his movements calm and steady. Xia Chengyin no longer argued with Tsung Yin and instead stared at Yang Kai with hatred. Although this young man might be a rare talent, the fact that his great elder had died at his hands was an indisputable fact. No matter what, he had to seek justice for Du and Hai. Little friend, what happened here? If it's convenient, can you tell me? Old Man Du asked solemnly. These two wanted to harm me, so they threw me into the wind eye and tried to blow my soul out, Yang Kai explained faintly. Nonsense, as far as I know, you are an honored guest invited by Du and Hai, why would he and Shu Qi want to harm you? Xia Chengyin obviously couldn't accept such an explanation. For no apparent reason, why would two second-order transcendents want to harm a little brat? Who are you? Yang Kai stared at the other party coldly, he could feel the hostility and resentment radiating from the other party. Old Man Du coughed dryly. This is Bright Thunder Spirit Religion's religion master, Xia Chengyin. Yang Kai gently nodded, feeling relieved before turning to Tsung Yin. And this one? Soaring Heaven Sect, Tsung Yin. Tsung Yin stepped forward and introduced himself. We don't seem to know each other, right? Yang Kai smiled at him in a friendly manner, his attitude neither warm nor cold. We don't know each other, Tsung Yin smiled lightly, but I have something to discuss with you. Something to discuss with me? Yang Kai's expression became playful as he glanced over at Du Wn, the latter quickly saying, Tsung Yin has no malicious intent towards you, I can guarantee that. Then we'll talk later, Yang Kai nodded to Tsung Yin. Chapter 686. Looking at the calm expression on Yang Kai's face, the Tsung Yin smile became more and more sinister. This little brat really suited his temperament. In front of Bright Thunder Religion's religion master, he had killed their great elder yet he didn't show any signs of panic. What kind of courage did this little brat have? The Tsung Yin swept his eyes over Yang Kai thoughtfully. His ancestral founder had ordered him to find this person and it had taken him 2 months to do so. Originally, he had been quite depressed and annoyed, but at this moment, he suddenly felt that these 2 months had been worth it. Boy, if you don't give me an explanation today, don't even think about leaving here. Xia Chengyin's face was livid as he grit his teeth and shouted. What kind of explanation do you want? Yang Kai smiled, I've already explained it to you. That's just your side of the story. Do you think this religion master will believe you so easily? Du Wn frowned and said with a kind expression, Little friend, is it really as you say? Yang Kai nodded seriously. And the reason? Why did they throw you into the wind eye? What good would it do them to blow your soul out? Du Wn asked carefully, knowing that if he didn't give Xia Chengyin an explanation this time, it would be impossible for him to give up. Yang Kai's expression was hesitant, somewhat unwilling to answer. This matter was related to the coffin-carrying man, so if this news were to be leaked, it would be extremely harmful to him. Little friend can rest assured, if what you say is the truth and you aren't in the wrong, this old master can guarantee you will leave here unharmed. Tsung Yin will also help, Du Wn said as he glanced over at the Tsung Yin. Tsung Yin was even more straightforward, even if you are in the wrong, no one can hurt you in front of me. Kai Yang looked at him with a strange expression. He really couldn't understand why this person was so protective of him. After a long silence, Yang Kai glared at Xia Chengyin coldly and said, Bright Thunder Religion's religion master, right? If it is indeed Du and Hai and Shu Qi who wanted to harm me, how can your Bright Thunder Religion compensate me? Compensate you? Xia Chengyin roared, you killed one of my Bright Thunder Religion's elders and you actually want compensation? Brat, did you make a mistake? My Bright Thunder Religion has suffered losses. He only has himself to blame. This time, if I hadn't been lucky, I would have died in the wind eye. Du Wn nodded. If it was indeed Duan Hai and Shu Qi, then their deaths should be regretted. What do you think? Religions. Little friend Yang entered your bright thunder spirit religion on the basis of this old master's recommendation. This old master is responsible for safeguarding his interests and safety. Although he was Yang Kai's was thunder religion, Yang Kai's was Yang Kai have his own face. As a saint-grade alchemist, it was rare for him to recommend a rising star into the Thunder Light sect, yet he had not expected to encounter such a thing. This was a great blow to his face and prestige. Elder S sects is of. If this is really the case, then there is no need for outsiders to act. This religion master will personally clean up the sect and give old man Du an explanation. Du Wn nodded with satisfaction before turning his eyes to Yang Kai. Now can little friend tell us the whole story? I still insist on compensation. Yang Kai smiled lightly. This matter cannot be settled so casually. This religion master is giving old man Du face. Who do you think you are? Don't take yourself too seriously. Xia Chengyin glared at Yang Kai angrily, wishing he could smash this little brat into meat paste. I support you. Tsangyan nodded firmly to Yang Kai. If religion master Xia doesn't compensate you, I will make sure Bright Thunder religion disappears from this world within a month. Uncle, you're so awe-inspiring. Mina looked at Tsangyan excitedly, a look of worship on her face. Uncle, the corners of Tsangyan's mouth twitched slightly, his expression indifferent and cold. Yang Kai's expression became more and more puzzled as he stared at Tsangyan, really unable to understand what was going on with this master, but now was not the time to ask questions. Yang Kai could also feel that this person had no malice towards him, so he was relieved. Tsangyan. Xia Chengyin clenched his fists, his yuan qi fluctuating as he coldly glared at Tsangyan. You want to fight? Then I'll accompany you, Tsangyan sneered. Both of you, please calm down. Old man Du was extremely helpless and could only stand up as a mediator, religion master Xia. This old man also hopes that if things are as this little friend says, you can give him some compensation. Old man Du also says so? Xia Chengyin's eyes filled with resentment, his face twitching as he struggled and hesitated for a while before shouting, Good, this religion master will agree to his rude request, but old man Du, if we find out that things are not as he says, then don't blame this Xia for not giving you face. As you wish. Du Wn nodded slightly before turning to Yang Kai. You may speak. Yang Kai pondered for a moment before revealing a helpless expression. The two of them want to collect my divine sense. Saying so, Yang Kai slightly released his spiritual energy and explained, because I have a conflagrated knowledge see. Everyone was dumbfounded, almost unable to believe their ears. However, feeling the burning hot aura contained in Yang Kai's spiritual energy, they had no choice but to believe it. Old man Du's eyes gradually lit up and his expression became one of excitement as he stared at Yang Kai, as if he was staring at a shocking treasure. Tsangyan also wore an excited expression. For someone as strong as him, there were very few things that could move him, but after perceiving Yang Kai's conflagrated knowledge see, he almost lost his composure. Laughing wildly in his heart, no wonder the ancestral founder sent him to find this little brat. It turned out that he was an alchemist with a conflagrated knowledge see. Wasn't this the same starting line as the famous old man of Heaven's Keep? Perhaps in the future he could reach the same height as the old man of Heaven's Keep, respected by the human, monster, and demon races. A conflagrated knowledge see was an extremely rare existence. Even if one or two cultivator possessed a conflagrated knowledge see, they were not necessarily proficient in alchemy. Having both was the quintessence of an alchemist. Xia Chengyin was dumbfounded. Looking at Yang Kai, his face was filled with regret. I told Duan Hai that it was impossible for me to stay in Thunder Light sect forever, so he and Shu Qi had some devious ideas. They wanted to use the power of the wind eye to blow out my conflagrated knowledge see. This is the truth, Yang Kai explained lightly. Although this wasn't the most fundamental reason, it was one of the reasons Duan Hai and Shu Qi had targeted Yang Kai. Yang Kai wasn't lying. He was also forced to reveal his conflagrated spiritual energy since he couldn't reveal any information about the coffin-carrying man I see. Old man Du nodded slightly. Feeling the conflagrated knowledge sea, he was even more convinced of Yang Kai's words. Taking a deep breath, he turned to Xie Chengyin and asked, "Religious Master Xie, is there anything else you want to ask? Or perhaps, you still don't believe this little friend's words?" "There's nothing else I want to ask." Xie Chengyin slowly shook his head, his momentum completely gone as he stared at Yang Kai with a complicated expression. If he continued to argue, he would only offend Old Man Du and the Tsangyin sect. Xie Chengyin couldn't afford such a consequence. Moreover, this Yang Kai was very likely to become a powerful figure in the future. If he offended him now, Thunder Light sect would no longer have peace in the future. That would be for the best. Old Man Du nodded with satisfaction before solemnly saying, "Today's matter should be kept between everyone here. If anyone dares to leak it, don't blame this old master for being impolite." Understood. Tsangyin and Xie Chengyin both nodded heavily. A conflagrated knowledge sea was a treasure coveted by the world. Once it was leaked, it would likely attract countless troubles. Xiao. With a burst of wind, Shu Qi's vitality was completely wiped out. Xie Chengyin's eyes flashed as he stared at Yang Kai, who had acted decisively. Although he was angry, there was nothing he could do. "Good, now we can talk about my compensation," Yang Kai grinned. Xie Chengyin's face twitched slightly. Although he was full of displeasure, he could only ask, "What compensation do you want?" "As long as my divine religion has it, I can agree, but don't make me do something I can't do." "Of course not," Yang Kai smiled meaningfully. "I want to go to the Thunder Eye to cultivate. I hope Religion Master Xie can open the door for me." As soon as these words came out, everyone once again looked at him in astonishment. "Go to the Thunder Eye?" Xie Chengyin was somewhat incredulous. "You also cultivate a thunder attribute secret art?" "This is my business. Religion Master Xie can't interfere, right?" Yang Kai shook his head. "Does the disappearance of the wind eye have anything to do with your excellency?" Xie Chengyin stared at Yang Kai vigilantly. "Maybe, maybe not, I'm not sure. If you go to the Thunder Eye, will the Thunder Eye disappear as well?" "It shouldn't. I ask Religion Master Xie to rest assured." In the Wind Eye, Yang Kai had stimulated the power of the Wind Eye, causing it to explode from the inside, destroying it. At that time, he had only done so out of revenge. If he hadn't done so, the Wind Eye would not have disappeared, but even if it remained, its power would be much weaker than before. "Religion Master Xie won't go back on his word, right? Then I won't agree." The Tsangyin glared at Xie Chengyin aggressively. "The Wind Eye and Thunder Eye are the foundation of my divine religion. Now that one has disappeared, it is very likely that it has a lot to do with him. How could I let him go to the other one? Do you think this religion master is a fool? You have to agree even if you don't want to." The Tsangyin sneered, grabbing Yang Kai and flying away. "Tsangyin, don't go too far." Xie Chengyin was furious and quickly chased after him. "Ha!" Du Wn sighed deeply, his expression helpless, hesitating for a moment before also catching up with Mina. The Tsangyin's speed was extremely fast. Being caught in his hand, Yang Kai could barely open his eyes, only feeling the scenery around him rapidly passing by. In less than half an incense stick worth of time, they arrived at the location of the Thunder Eye of Bright Thunder Spirit Religion. Here, many disciples of Bright Thunder Spirit Religion had gathered, all of them meditating and comprehending the mysteries of thunder and lightning. The stronger disciples were closer to the Thunder Eye while the weaker ones were further away. High up in the void, a huge vortex of lightning continuously rained down lightning, filling the air with a constant crackling sound as the heavens and earth filled with violent thunder attribute energy. When the Tsangyen arrived with Yang Kai, the disciples of Bright Thunder Spirit Religion who were meditating showed surprised expressions and turned to look at them. "Boy, are you sure you want to go in? That place is no joke. If you make a mistake, your soul will be destroyed." The Tsangyen stared at the violent Thunder Eye, a look of dread on his face. Chapter 687. The violent energy in the Thunder Eye was even stronger than the Wind Eye. The Tsangyen dared to release his divine sense to probe the situation inside the Wind Eye, but he didn't dare touch the Thunder Eye. Between the two, the Thunder Eye was undoubtedly more dangerous. "Thunder Light Religion's religion master has caught up," "Senior, please let me in." Yang Kai glanced back and saw Xie Chengyin rushing towards him, his face filled with anxiety. Although he had not yet arrived, he was already shouting. The Tsangyan didn't put him in his eyes at all and simply smiled. "Little brat, you're really strange. Good, I'll do as you wish, but don't die, otherwise I won't be able to explain myself to Ancestral Founder." Saying so, he casually threw Yang Kai forward and Yang Kai's figure quickly fell into the Thunder Eye. Cries of alarm rang out as the Thunder Light Religion disciples who were cultivating stared in amazement at Yang Kai disappearing into the Thunder Eye, wondering how this person had offended the Tsangyan and was actually thrown into such a place. Xie Chengyin arrived shortly after, but he could only watch helplessly. Inside the Thunder Eye, Yang Kai felt a huge pressure as soon as he entered, one that was much stronger than when he was in the Wind Eye. The power of the lightning shuttled through his body, causing his hair to stand on end and his body to shiver. Soon, a burnt smell wafted out from his skin. After consuming the myriad drug milk again, Yang Kai sat down cross-legged inside the Thunder Eye, ignoring his own injuries and allowing his wind and thunder wings to absorb the surrounding thunder energy. After experiencing this once, Yang Kai became more and more adept at dealing with this kind of situation and knew what his wind and thunder wings were thirsting for. On his back and right shoulder blade, as expected, a huge attractive force was produced. The surrounding thunder energy was pulled into his body. Hua. Once again, it spread its wings. On the left side, wind spirits danced, while on the right side, lightning flashed and electric arcs danced. Yang Kai soon entered a state of selflessness as he comprehended the mysteries of thunder and thunder. Outside the Thunder Eye, the Thunder Light Religion disciples had been driven away while the Tsangyan and Xie Chengyin fought fiercely. In the end, it was Elder Du who stepped forward and stopped their battle. It was very difficult for two Third-Order Transcendent Masters to determine the victor, but Xie Chengyin clearly felt that he was somewhat inferior to Tsangyan. If they were to continue fighting like this, the one who would lose would undoubtedly be him. After realizing this, Sect Master Lei Guang took advantage of the situation and decisively stopped. As time passed, the people waiting outside the Thunder Eye could clearly sense that the thunder attribute energy in the area had weakened a lot. The most direct manifestation was that the lightning striking down from the Thunder Eye was sparser than before. Xie Chengyin's face turned extremely ugly. Today, with the death of the two elders, the Eye of the Storm disappeared, and the power of the Eye of the Thunder was weakened. It was unknown whether it would disappear like the Eye of the Storm. He was Lei Guang's loss. Immeasurable. A day later, the power of the Thunder Eye was less than half of its usual power. Xie Chengyin's eyes were red as he stared at the Thunder Eye like a ferocious beast. His expression was resentful. Although Old Man Du felt that it was somewhat immoral to harm his foundation, when he thought about how Duan Hai even wanted to harm the person he had recommended, he couldn't help feeling angry. Inside the Thunder Eye, Yang Kai took a deep breath. Suddenly opening his eyes, Yang Kai's pupils shined brightly. After a day of absorption, he noticed that the wind and thunder wings in his body had reached perfection. From this moment on, this pair of wings had truly been refined by him and had become his greatest strength. The wings behind his back were filled with yang attribute energy, while the left half contained the agility of wind while the right half contained the violence of thunder. Wind, thunder, and yang, these three attributes had formed a strange balance and subtle changes had taken place between them. It was no longer a simple combination of one attribute. The wind and thunder attributes now contained a burning heat that had evolved into wind flame and thunder flame. Compared to the pure wind and thunder attribute, the lethality of these two attributes was now several times greater. The yang inflammation wings had also been completely replaced by the wind and thunder wings. It was just that Yang Kai found it somewhat difficult to determine the existence of this pair of wings. They were both like an artifact and his own martial skill. However, it was undeniable that Han Fei had indeed given him a great gift. The reason why Han Fei and Li Rong had not been able to refine the wind and thunder wings was likely because they had not had such an opportunity. All of this was a coincidence, but it was also an inevitable result. Taking back his wind and thunder wings, Yang Kai stepped out of the greatly weakened Thunder Eye. Everyone who had been waiting for a long time saw Yang Kai walk out and couldn't help but light up. Even Xia Chengyin couldn't help breathing a sigh of relief. The Thunder Eye had not disappeared, and although its power was not as strong as before, it had at least been preserved. Staring at Yang Kai, the look in his eyes was extremely complicated, a mix of annoyance and resentment. "You little brat, you made us wait." As soon as he saw Yang Kai appear, Tsangyan immediately laughed. "You little brat, your aura has changed a lot. Did you gain something?" "A little." Yang Kai nodded lightly. "My cultivation hasn't increased, but I was able to comprehend some of the mysteries of thunder. Sorry for making you wait so long." "Little friend is too polite." Du Wn smiled and nodded. "Since you've finished, let's go." Tsangyan waved his hand. Yang Kai glanced over at Xia Chengyin faintly, but the latter's expression remained gloomy, not saying a word, seemingly having no intention of stopping them. With Tsangyan here, he couldn't stop them even if he wanted to. Thunder Light Sect's losses these past 2 days were already big enough. If they really wanted to offend Tsangyan and start a war with Soaring Heaven Sect, Thunder Light Sect would be powerless to resist. Soaring Heaven Sect's 4 great madmen were not any worse than him. Once they started fighting, Thunder Light Sect would definitely be destroyed. Xia Chengyin could only swallow his anger. "Religion Master Xia, I'll have to trouble you this time." Old Man Du nodded to Xia Chengyin. "Farewell, I won't see you off." Xia Chengyin took a deep breath and closed his eyes, unwilling to look back. Tsangyan coldly snorted before waving his Yuan Qi, wrapping Yang Kai, Du Wan, and Mina in it, and flying off. After they left, Xia Chengyin stared at their backs with a twisted expression for a moment before suddenly activating his movement skill and flying towards the eye of the storm. He still had some doubts about Yang Kai's previous statement, but with Du Wan nearby, he didn't want to tangle with him, so naturally he wanted to investigate. Although Shu Qi and Duan Hai had been dead for a day, Xia Chengyin was still confident. Gathering their scattered souls and prying into their memories, he wanted to see what kind of grievances had occurred between them and Yang Kai. Arriving at the 2 dead great elders, Xia Chengyin silently circulated his secret art and released a series of mysterious bursts of energy. Soon, a barrier appeared within a radius of 30 kilometers. He wanted to seal off this place so he could collect Shu Qi and Duan Hai's souls. He believed that with the cultivation of these two, even if their physical bodies died, their souls would not dissipate so quickly. But what made Xia Chengyin depressed and puzzled was, no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't recall even a trace of their souls. The 2 elders seemed to have had their souls extinguished, a discovery that made him surprised. Bright Thunder Spirit Religion. Midair, a group of 4 people was flying at high speed. As they passed by a mountain, Yang Kai inadvertently glanced down and happened to see a tall woman with a proud figure standing there. The other party seemed to have noticed him as well, her beautiful eyes filled with guilt and surprise as she stared at him foolishly. Suddenly, she flew up and chased after him with all her strength, her pretty face filled with anxiety. But how could her speed be compared to Tsangyan's? In just a few breaths of time, she was quickly left behind. "Hey! You bastard, there was a little girl chasing you just now," Mina suddenly poked Yang Kai and said with an ambiguous expression. "What?" Yang Kai pretended to be confused. "You're still denying it," Mina snorted. "She called out your name. Did you do something to her that you would abandon her after taking advantage of her?" TSK, I really didn't see it. You're such a beast with a human face, it looks like I'll have to stay away from you in the future. Don't talk nonsense, okay? I'm a very pure person, I would never do such a thing," Yang Kai said seriously. Mina curled her lips, obviously not believing him. She had probably stayed in the Alchemist Guild for too long. Her gossipy heart was stronger than anyone else's, so she grabbed Yang Kai and kept asking questions. Yang Kai ignored her and instead looked at Tsangyan with a puzzled expression. Even now, he still didn't understand why the other party would help him for no reason, even at the expense of offending the Bright Thunder Spirit Religion leader. After hesitating for a long time, Yang Kai asked, "Senior, can you tell me why you helped me? What good does it do you?" Tsangyan turned to look at him while flying, a smile appearing on his cold face. "You're very vigilant." Yang Kai nodded without hesitation. Old Man Du chuckled. Little friend doesn't need to suspect Tsangyan. Although I made a mistake in recommending you to Bright Thunder Spirit religion, this time I can guarantee he won't do you any harm. I naturally believe Old Man Du's words. Yang Kai gently nodded, but this doesn't answer the confusion in my heart. Since Senior has no malice towards me, can you tell me the reason? Telling you isn't a big deal, I'm just completing my own task. Task? Yang Kai was surprised. I won't tell you too much, but you should come with me to a place later and you should understand because I don't know much about it. Who gave you this task? My family's ancestral founder. Soaring Heaven Sect's sect master? Yang Kai couldn't help feeling shocked. Tsangyan didn't answer and simply continued flying forward. Yang Kai asked a few more times before finally giving up and turning to Old Man Du. What kind of person is Soaring Heaven Sect's sect master? A Saint Realm Master, Du Wn replied. I don't know exactly how strong he is, but when you see him, you can ask him. Tsangyan, who was flying forward, suddenly stopped and said, Old Man Du, let's part ways here. I need to take him back to the sect as soon as possible. Very well. Du Wn gently nodded before turning to Yang Kai and saying, Little friend, this time you have suffered. This old master is really sorry, but the Alchemist Guild will always open its doors to you. If you have some spare time, please remember to come back and visit. Old Man Du's kindness gave Yang Kai a warm feeling in his heart and nodded. It's not Old Man Du's fault. Old Man Du doesn't need to worry about it. I'll definitely return to the Alchemist Guild. Old Man Du smiled lightly before turning to Tsangyan and saying, Send my regards to your ancestral founder. This old man is old and weak, so I won't be seeing him again. I'll definitely do so, Tsangyan nodded. Then, Old Man Du, we'll take our leave first. Saying so, Old Man Du led Yang Kai in another direction. Yang Kai, remember to come back. Mina waved goodbye to Yang Kai. Chapter 688. Soaring Heaven Sect was one of the 4 great forces in the vicinity of Grand Boulder City. Although they were called 4 great forces, in fact, the other 3 couldn't be compared to Soaring Heaven Sect at all. Whether it was in terms of heritage or strength, Soaring Heaven Sect was several levels ahead of them. Ancient Mooncave Heaven, Luo Shunk Sect, and Bright Thunder Spirit Religion, none of them had a single Saint Realm Master, but it was rumored that Soaring Heaven Sect had 2 or 3 Saint Realm Masters. Below the Saint Realm, the 4 Third Order Transcendent Realm Masters were also well known. These 4 were all extremely powerful masters, and Tsangyan was one of them. However, in the eyes of those who didn't know the details, Soaring Heaven Sect was on equal footing with the other 3 great forces because it didn't have many disciples, far less than Bright Thunder Spirit Religion and the other great forces. Yang Kai was led by Tsangyan all the way, constantly asking about Soaring Heaven Sect along the way. Tsangyan seemed to be a relatively taciturn person who cherished his words like gold, but he still patiently answered Yang Kai's questions. At the same time, he also observed Yang Kai along the way. Tsangyan was also confused as to why his ancestral founder wanted him to find this boy. Half a day later, just as they were about to reach Soaring Heaven Sect, Tsangyan suddenly stopped and stared ahead suspiciously, seemingly having discovered something. Soon, Yang Kai also noticed a powerful aura rapidly approaching. This aura and life force fluctuations were not any weaker than Tsangyan's, but unlike the pressure he felt from Tsangyan, this aura was much softer, like a flowing river. Yang Kai couldn't help showing a curious expression, but he didn't ask anything and just waited quietly. A moment later, a blue light quickly approached from the distance and stopped in front of Tsangyan. The blue light dissipated and a beautiful woman dressed in an unusually bold dress appeared in front of Tsangyan. This beautiful woman had snow-white skin and a pair of watery eyes that seemed to contain 10,000 kinds of amorous feelings. At the corner of her mouth was a black mole the size of a grain of rice, adding to her charm. The beautiful woman's face was filled with a lazy smile. Her upper body was exposed, revealing half of her snow-white breasts and her ravine. Her lower body was wearing a slit skirt. Her long and slender legs were exposed to the air, and the hazy beauty between her legs could be faintly seen. Yang Kai was stunned and couldn't help staring at her a few more times. The beautiful woman didn't try to avoid him, nor did she show the slightest shyness. Instead, she simply looked at Yang Kai with a smile, a look of interest appearing on her gorgeous face. Tsungyen's brow furrowed. Feiyu, why did you come out? Didn't martial ancestors' seclusion in half a year? Of course, it's not like Yu's martial ancestors' imprisonment ends. You're not going to tell me you're sneaking out here. I didn't sneak out. Feiyu curled her lips and lightly gritted her teeth. Without seeing any movement, she suddenly appeared in front of Yang Kai, stretched out a delicate hand, and lifted Yang Kai's chin. Where are you from, little brother? Why do you look so unfamiliar? Yang Kai couldn't help but feel goosebumps all over his body. Tsungyen quickly pulled Yang Kai behind him and stood between him and Feiyu like a mother hen protecting her chicks. He frowned and said, "Don't be ridiculous. This is the person the martial ancestor is looking for." The person the martial ancestor is looking for? Feiyu heard this and a strange light appeared in her beautiful eyes. Why is the martial ancestor looking for him? I don't know. Tsungyen shook his head, but he's not your toy. I know. Feiyu curled her lips impatiently. Let's talk about your problem. Why didn't you obediently stay in the sect? Why did you come out here? The martial ancestor told me to come out, Feiyu giggled. Without the martial ancestor's order, how would I dare to come out? She paused, then said with her beautiful eyes, yes, the martial ancestor told me to redeem myself by doing good deeds. He said that if I can solve this problem, I'll be exempted from the 6 months of seclusion. What problem did he ask you to solve? Tsungyen asked curiously, but as soon as he said it, he slapped himself and raised his hand. Pretend I didn't ask. I'm going back to the sect, you can do as you please. Don't go. Feiyu grabbed Tsungyen's arm and said sweetly, since you asked, of course I'll tell you. Saying so, she didn't care whether Tsungyen was willing or not and began explaining. 100 kilometers away from Soaring Heaven sect, a disciple who was cultivating found a cave with some barriers and rich world energy. It should have been a blessed land left behind by some powerful master many years ago. The disciple was unable to break through the barriers, so he returned to the sect and gathered a group of his brothers and junior brothers. More than a dozen people worked together to open the blessed land, hoping to find some opportunities, but unexpectedly, there was a hidden trap inside the blessed land. Caught off guard, all of them were poisoned. All those who entered were poisoned by an exotic ancient insect called the soul-devouring insect. When this news reached Soaring Heaven sect, the martial ancestor asked Feiyu to deal with it. Soul-devouring insect. Tsungyen's face also changed greatly. Aren't these exotic ancient insects extinct? Who knows? Feiyu shrugged her shoulders. I don't know which despicable bastard left behind this blessed land near our Soaring Heaven sect. If we find his body, we'll definitely tear him apart. Martial ancestor wants you to go. How are you going to deal with it? Those things aren't something ordinary people can deal with. Even you may end up buried inside. Feiyu said with an aggrieved and pitiful look. So, Tsungyen, please help me. How can I help you? I have no way to deal with these exotic ancient insects. You cultivate a fire attribute secret art, can't you just burn them to death? The fire of Yuan Qi, do you think it can burn them to death? You're being too whimsical. Tsungyen coldly snorted, suddenly glancing over at Yang Kai, a thoughtful expression appearing on her face. But besides you, no one can help me. Rimaru and Fei Jian, those two bastards, when they learned I took on such a task, they're all hiding from me. They're simply too hateful. Feiyu ground her teeth in disdain. I should have been hiding from you too. Tsungyen felt a headache coming on. If he had known this would happen, he wouldn't have asked that question. After living with this woman for so many years, Tsungyen still couldn't help but be deceived by her appearance, often falling into her traps. It's too late now. Feiyu looked coldly at Tsungyen. You have to help me, even if you don't want to. Tsungyen sighed helplessly. I really can't do it this time. I have to take this kid back to see the martial ancestor as soon as possible. You've already delayed it for 2 months. What's a little more time? Come with me to take a look. If you really can't do it, I won't force you. Feiyu tried to persuade her. Tsungyen frowned, seeming to be weighing the pros and cons. Feiyu saw that there was hope, so she quickly struck while the iron was hot, continuously persuading her. After a while, Tsungyen nodded slightly. All right, I'll help you this time, but I can't guarantee that it'll work. Fei Yu was overjoyed, and praised repeatedly, I knew you were the best, Rimaru and Fei Jian, those two bastards, next time they'll die. But I also have a request. What request? Tsangyan coughed lightly. I remember that 50 years ago, you brewed a batch of 1,000 safflower wine, right? Fei Yu's pretty face changed, and she gritted her teeth. You remember something that happened 50 years ago? I've always been thinking about good things. Tsangyan nodded slightly, and said matter-of-factly, yes, if you succeed, you'll give me half. No, that 1,000 safflower wine was brewed from 1,000 types of spirit flowers that I traveled all over the world, and after 50 years of waiting, I haven't even had a sip myself, and now you want half? You're even worse than Rimaru and Fei Jian. If that's the case, I'd rather not have your help. Yang Kai stared at this beautiful woman in amazement, faintly feeling that this so-called 1,000 safflower wine was more valuable than her life. You brewed 20 jars, even if you give me half, you still have 10. At most, I'll give you 1 jar, don't even think about it. 8 jars. 1 jar. 5 jars. After some hard bargaining, Tsangyan could only pinch her nose and agree, fine, 1 jar it is. That depends on whether you have the ability or not. Fei Yu spat disdainfully, if you can't help, I won't give you a sip. Saying so, she glared at Yang Kai, smelly brat, what are you laughing at? Is it funny? No, but it's quite interesting. Yang Kai shrugged his shoulders, watching two-third order transcendents bicker endlessly while feeling the friendship between them really made one feel warm inside. Yang Kai seemed to have not experienced such a feeling for a long time. Ever since he came to Tongxian realm, he had been all alone. Let's go, where is that blessed land? Having reached an agreement, Tsangyan didn't want to waste any more time. Come with me, Fei Yu said, leading the way. As this beautiful woman flew, her round buttocks and willowy waist swayed back and forth, her jet-black hair fluttering in the wind, revealing her fair and slender neck that was as delicate as porcelain. Don't look at her, be careful she doesn't gouge your eyes out, Tsangyan whispered in Yang Kai's ear. That wouldn't be possible, right? Yang Kai was stunned. Last time, there was an elder from Luo Sheng sect, because he looked at her too much, she. As Kang Yang spoke, he gestured with his hand as if he was chopping down, brushing past Yang Kai's lower body. Yang Kai's face went black. That's why Ancestral Founder put her in solitary confinement. Tsangyan nodded seriously, Ian, but don't be fooled by her coquettish dress, in fact, she's still a virgin. Before Tsangyan finished speaking, a soft fist flew towards him, catching him off guard and sending him flying more than 1,000 meters. Fei Yu stood in the air, her pretty face cold as she stared coldly at Tsangyan who was sent flying and scolded, Do you really think I'm deaf? Yang Kai couldn't help but gulp, secretly worried for Tsangyan. Little brother, come here, elder sister will take you away. Fei Yu suddenly smiled and waved to Yang Kai. Without waiting for him to answer, she wrapped him in her yuan qi and flew forward side by side. Smelling the fragrance of this beautiful woman, Yang Kai was a little unnatural, but his expression was serious and he didn't look sideways. Don't listen to that bastard, he only knows how to slander me. Fei Yu said softly, her breath like orchids, touching his heartstrings, It doesn't matter if you look at me a little more, elder sister won't hurt you, I'm very gentle. Chapter 689. Atop a solitary mountain peak, Tsangyan, Fei Yu, and Yang Kai landed halfway up the mountain and carefully investigated the surrounding area. The two-third order transcendent masters quickly locked onto a certain area. Yang Kai also faintly noticed that there was some subtle energy overflowing from this place. However, looking around, this territory in front of him was no different from the surrounding area, it was just an ordinary piece of land. It should be a smokescreen, not bad, no wonder no one has been able to discover the mysteries of this place for so many years. Tsangyan showed a look of surprise as he glanced around. I'm afraid too much time has passed and the sect's disciples have inadvertently discovered the mysteries of this place, Fei Yu also agreed. Don't waste time, let's begin. Tsangyan stretched out his foot and stomped the ground, releasing an unusually hot aura. Yang Kai suddenly saw a series of mysterious runes appear on the ground. These runes swam about like tadpoles, struggling for a moment before all of them suddenly burst into flames and were reduced to ashes. Tsangyen cultivated a fire attribute secret art, so his yuan qi flames were exceptionally pure, so with his third-order transcendent strength, it was naturally easy for him to break through this smoke screen that had been left behind for so many years. A strange black hole appeared on the ground, only large enough for one person to pass through at a time. Fei Yu didn't say anything and simply jumped in, soon disappearing from sight. Tsangyen waved his hand and said, "Go in." "I'm going in too." Yang Kai was stunned. He had thought he would have to wait up there. After all, more than a dozen soaring heaven sect disciples had met with misfortune inside, so there was bound to be many dangers inside. If he were to rush in, he would only become a burden to these two masters. "Of course you're going in," Tsangyen smiled slyly. "I'm afraid we'll have to rely on you this time." "Rely on me?" Yang Kai was even more surprised. "Senior, you must be joking." "I'm not joking. If I was alone, I wouldn't have agreed to Fei Yu's request. But it's different with you. You'll know once you're inside," the Tsangyen said as he threw Yang Kai down. Yang Kai had no choice but to quietly condense his yuan qi and focus his mind to guard against the unexpected. The hole seemed to be very deep. Yang Kai slid all the way down for the time it took to burn a stick of incense before he finally stepped on the ground. He steadied himself and stepped to the side. The Tsangyen also quickly landed. "So slow." Fei Yu pouted in dissatisfaction. Tsangyen didn't say a word. A bright fireball suddenly appeared beside him, illuminating the surroundings. "It's definitely a blessed land. I wonder which senior's abode this is." Tsangyen's eyes lit up when he felt the energy of heaven and earth here. Fei Yu also seemed to be excited. "Since it's a blessed land, there must be treasures here." "It's very possible." Tsangyen nodded. "Let's go." With that, he took the lead and led the way. Fei Yu and Yang Kai followed closely behind him, extremely vigilant. As they walked, Fei Yu suddenly leaned close to Yang Kai and gently breathed into his ear. She whispered, "Don't use your yuan qi. There are soul-devouring worms here. They love yuan qi the most. Once they infect you, you're done for." That's how those disciples met with misfortune. Yang Kai's expression froze. He quickly nodded. Suddenly, he was confused and asked, "Since they met with misfortune, how did you get the news? Did they spread the news?" "No, they didn't." Fei Yu shook her head. "It was martial ancestor who said so. My martial ancestor's ability is great. Everything within a 500-kilometer radius, as long as he wants it, will be within his grasp." Kai Yang's face was filled with shock. Soaring Heaven Sect's martial ancestor was truly amazing. Yang Kai's divine sense was also extremely powerful. The range of his perception was about 100 kilometers, but the further away he was, the less clear his perception became and the more spiritual energy he consumed. On the other hand, Soaring Heaven Sect's martial ancestor could explore a 500-kilometer radius. The difference between the two was like the difference between heaven and earth. The Tsangyen's footsteps suddenly came to a halt because in front of him, a cultivator wearing Soaring Heaven Sect's robes was lying on the ground, his eyes wide open. Bending down to examine him, the Tsangyen slowly shook his head. This person was obviously dead. Fei Yu no longer whispered to Yang Kai, her pretty face becoming dignified as she took out a bell-like artifact and activated its power to protect herself and Yang Kai while following closely behind the Tsangyen. This artifact should be a soul-type artifact, at the very least spirit grade. As soon as he summoned this artifact, Yang Kai suddenly felt as if he was soaking in water, warm and comfortable. "Be careful, follow me closely, don't stray too far from me. With your insignificant cultivation, once you're targeted by those soul-devouring insects, you'll die without a doubt," Fei Yu quickly warned. Yang Kai nodded firmly, not daring to show the slightest carelessness. The Tsangyen's courage stemmed from his skill, so he continued to explore the path ahead. From time to time, they would encounter one or two Soaring Heaven Sect disciples who had fallen victim to the attack. After careful investigation, most of them were already dead, with only 3 or 5 of them remaining unconscious. The Tsangyen, without exception, gave these unconscious disciples some pills. After walking for an unknown period of time, the group of 3 suddenly came across a large bronze gate. Just as the 3 of them arrived here, a black fog suddenly flew out from the bronze gate, and from this black fog, countless tiny things that could not be seen with the naked eye rushed towards the trio. The Tsungyen's face changed greatly as he hurriedly retreated, his yuan qi fiercely spurting out a burst of flames, but the black fog was unable to be incinerated and was only able to slightly slow down its speed. Soul-devouring insects! Fei Yu exclaimed, her beautiful face going pale, her yuan qi bursting forth and forming a series of water arrows that shot towards the black fog. Why are there still so many of them? Fei Yu's voice trembled slightly as she shouted, Tsungyen, run! Although she and the Tsungyen had both reached the third-order transcendent realm and were extremely powerful masters, in the face of these exotic ancient insects, they were still somewhat helpless. The only thing they could do now was to escape from here and report back to their ancestral founder before making a decision. The Tsungyen, on the other hand, did not seem to be in a hurry as he rushed over to Fei Yu and Yang Kai's side, staring at the rapidly approaching black fog and shouting to Yang Kai, use your divine sense to burn them. Yang Kai was stunned for a moment before quickly reacting, sending out his spiritual energy in the nick of time. A scorching hot aura filled the air as a burst of flames exploded mid-air. The black fog that had rendered the Tsungyen and Fei Yu helpless was suddenly burned to ashes. Conflagrated knowledge see. Fei Yu's beautiful eyes lit up as she stared at Yang Kai in surprise. She had not expected that this young man would possess such a rare conflagrated knowledge see. Do you think I would accompany you here to die? Kang Yang snorted, a smug look appearing on his face. Yang Kai's expression remained serious. After realizing that his conflagrated knowledge sea was actually the nemesis of these exotic ancient insects, he no longer felt nervous and stepped forward towards the closed bronze door. He could feel that there were countless tiny life forms hidden behind this door. These should be the soul-devouring insects. The dozen or so soaring heaven sect disciples should have met their tragic end here. Yang Kai continued to release his conflagrated knowledge sea, and the soul-devouring insects did not even have a chance to escape from the bronze door before they were all burned to death. The Tsungyen and Fei Yu were both overjoyed. After a while, Yang Kai withdrew his divine sense and nodded to the two, they should all be dead. Little brother did a good job. Fei Yu swayed her hips as she walked up and patted Yang Kai's shoulder affectionately. Elder sister likes young and promising boys like you. We should get closer in the future. Ha ha. Yang Kai let out a few dry laughs. The Tsungyen also walked over and stared at the closed bronze door, an eager look on her face. Since this was a secluded cave mansion left behind by the ancient people, there must be some treasures behind this bronze door. Do you want to go in and take a look? The Tsungyen turned her head and glanced at Fei Yu. We've already come all this way, are you going to turn a blind eye to it? Fei Yu smiled lightly. Yang Kai's eyes flashed as he said, I'll wait for you here. The Tsungyen and Fei Yu stared at him, and Yang Kai explained, there might be other traps inside, I'll only be a burden if I go in. That's fine. The Tsungyen nodded, then you wait here, we'll be back soon. Be careful. Fei Yu coquettishly warned. Yang Kai nodded, and the Tsungyen and Fei Yu pushed open the bronze door, rushed inside, and disappeared. After they left, Yang Kai slowly walked up to the bronze door and stared at it with a subtle smile on his face. His divine sense cleverly burst forth, and soon, wisps of black fog drifted out from the bronze door. The soul-devouring insects weren't all dead. Yang Kai also knew that the Tsungyen and Fei Yu didn't dare to release their divine senses easily, so he had taken advantage of this to successfully deceive them. Yang Kai didn't know why Soaring Heaven Sect's ancestral founder wanted to see him or what he wanted to do with him. On Tongxian realm, Yang Kai's strength wasn't too high, so these soul-devouring insects that even third-order transcendents were helpless against had provided him with a powerful trump card. Perhaps it was a bit suspicious of him being a petty man, but Yang Kai had to make some plans for his future. Knowing that there would be treasures behind the bronze door, Yang Kai didn't search for them. Firstly, he wanted to collect these soul-devouring insects, and secondly, he didn't want to get into a dispute with the Tsungyen and Fei Yu. If they found something good but didn't share it with him, Yang Kai felt that he would definitely hold a grudge against them. What the eye doesn't see, the heart doesn't grieve over. His spiritual energy flowed out of his body, guiding the soul-devouring insects into his knowledge sea. The soul-devouring insects were living creatures, so unlike the yin-yang monster ginseng, they couldn't be stored inside the black book space. Under the influence of Yang Kai's spiritual energy, the soul-devouring insects seemed to become extremely obedient, all of them rushing into his knowledge sea at his will. Yang Kai controlled the energy in his knowledge sea to prevent the conflagrated knowledge sea from harming them, placing them all on the island formed by the 5-colored soul-warming lotus. In the entire knowledge sea, this was the only place without a conflagrated knowledge sea, making it the most suitable place to place the soul-devouring insects. Chapter 690. Today's update. The soul-devouring insects loved to devour spiritual energy while the 5-colored soul-warming lotus was constantly emitting a magical energy to nourish Yang Kai's soul. As soon as these exotic ancient insects fell onto the 5-colored island, they became excited, as if they had entered a comfortable nest and were no longer willing to leave. This unexpected result was not within Yang Kai's calculations, but it was still something he was happy to see. As long as he could control them well, not only would these exotic ancient insects not cause him any harm, Yang Kai could even use his spiritual energy to cultivate them, strengthen them, and when he needed them, release them to meet his enemies. After obtaining the soul-devouring insects, Yang Kai had gained another layer of self-protection. Although in terms of physical strength, he was still only a peak immortal ascension boundary cultivator, not even reaching the transcendent realm. In a battle of spiritual energy, Yang Kai felt that he no longer needed to fear Saint Realm Masters. His conflagrated knowledge sea and soul-devouring insects could both be used externally, and although the solitary golden eye could only be used inside his knowledge sea, if some master overestimated their strength and sent their soul into Yang Kai's knowledge sea, they would definitely not be able to return. With this additional layer of protection, Yang Kai felt slightly relieved. After thinking about it for a moment, Yang Kai did not stay in place and instead walked out. He wanted to collect all the exotic ancient insects in the knowledge seas of the Soaring Heaven sect disciples who were still alive. There were only about 4 or 5 people still alive, so if he left them alone, they would all die. Even Soaring Heaven sect's martial ancestor would be helpless to save them. Although Yang Kai's starting point was for his own sake, if he succeeded, he could also save their lives and win the favor of Soaring Heaven sect's masters, a win-win business. Without any burdens in his heart, Yang Kai acted boldly. Inside the Bronze Gate, after Tsangyan and Feiyu rushed in, they continued to search for hidden treasures. Both of them seemed to have gained something as well, and they seemed to be very excited. Tsangyan, I suddenly remembered that the ancestral master sent me out to do something at this time, and I just happened to bump into you bringing that kid back. This shouldn't be a coincidence, right? Feiyu seemed to have sensed something, and asked as she searched for treasures. It shouldn't be a coincidence. The Tsangyan nodded. Grandmaster probably wants to use this opportunity to test the young man's temperament. Did you know from the beginning? Feiyu looked at the Tsangyan with a faint smile. Of course, the moment I heard about the soul-devouring worms, I understood what the patriarch was planning. Soul-devouring insects can only be dealt with by those with conflagrated knowledge sea. How could it be so coincidental that I just happened to bring someone with conflagrated knowledge sea back? The Tsangyan said in a deep voice, if I didn't bring him back, the ancestral master wouldn't have let you do this. From the looks of it, ancestral master doesn't seem to know what kind of person that little fellow is. Then why did the ancestral master find him? I don't understand. More than 2 months ago, the ancestral master suddenly asked me to find him. It took me a lot of effort to find out his whereabouts. The Tsangyan frowned slightly, and he doesn't know the ancestral master. Strange, the ancestral master is always so unpredictable. Feiyu curled her lips. However, since you already know the ancestral master's intentions, you still dare to bargain with me on this condition. You're too shameless. You won't get a share of the 1,000 safflower wine. Hearing this, the Tsangyan's face turned bitter. Conflagrated knowledge sea, interesting. Feiyu muttered with a smile. He's also a spirit-grade alchemist, the Tsangyan added. Feiyu's tender body shook. Are you serious? I think this may be the reason the ancestral master asked me to find him. This little brat's future is boundless. I'm really looking forward to him stirring up a storm in Tongxian realm and becoming an existence not inferior to the old man of Heaven's Keep. If that's the case, then I really need to get close to him. Such a talent is rare. Fei Yu also finally became dignified. Only now did she realize that she had underestimated Yang Kai. And I always felt that his potential was far greater than this. This little brat has many mysteries. With his current performance, if he is properly trained, he may really be able to surpass the young talents from the top forces of Tongxian realm and become the most dazzling new star. The person the ancestral master has chosen is definitely not a vulgar person, Fei Yu also agreed. The two masters secretly decided that before Yang Kai revealed his true strength, they had to establish a good relationship with him. After all, when Yang Kai rode the wind and broke through the waves and became a dragon, it would be of great benefit to them. After about a day and a night, Yang Kai saw Tsungyan and Fei Yu come out from behind the bronze gate. Both of them were overjoyed. It seemed that their harvest was not small. Seeing Yang Kai sitting cross-legged and waiting quietly with 4 or 5 soaring heaven sect disciples lying beside him, Tsungyan and Fei Yu couldn't help showing surprised looks. I had nothing to do, so I tried to expel the soul-devouring insects from their knowledge seas, but I didn't expect to succeed so easily. These people should be able to recover after a year or so of cultivation, Yang Kai explained. Not bad, Tsungyan's eyes lit up as she praised. Before, he and Fei Yu had not cared about the life or death of these disciples and had only given them pills because they didn't know what to do, so they thought they were doomed, but now Yang Kai had given them a pleasant surprise. Elder sister likes you more and more. Fei Yu smiled tenderly. You can be considered the savior of these disciples. Rest assured, elder sister will definitely not treat you unfairly. Yang Kai shrugged his shoulders and said indifferently, "Are you done?" "Yes." Tsungyan smiled lightly, suddenly reaching out and taking out a few things, placing them in front of Yang Kai and shouting, "Take a look, whatever you want, just take it." These are the things Fei Yu and I found inside, but unfortunately, most of them have been reduced to dust due to the passage of time. I also get a share. Yang Kai pointed to himself and asked in surprise. Of course, did you think we would take everything for ourselves? Fei Yu smiled tenderly. If it weren't for you, we wouldn't even have been able to enter the gate, let alone search for treasures. You also saved several of my sect's disciples, so you are the biggest contributor. Then I won't be polite. Yang Kai smiled slightly, his eyes rolling over the few things in front of him. Tsungyan and Fei Yu looked at each other and nodded secretly, thinking that this little brat was really a character. If it were any other young man, in front of the two of them, they would not dare to say this. They would definitely refuse and would rather give up the benefits in front of them to leave a good impression on them. When it was time to act, he acted decisively. In front of Kai Yang were 5 things, 3 artifacts, 1 secret art, and the last one was a black stone the size of a fist. These were indeed all the useful things Tsungyan and Fei Yu found inside, and they did not hide this matter. Of the 3 artifacts, the worst one was spirit grade top rank, while the remaining 2 were saint grade artifacts, their value immeasurable. Even as strong as Tsungyan and Fei Yu were, they had never owned a saint grade artifact. As for that cultivation technique, it was a pretty good one as well. It was a high-grade spirit-level cultivation technique. Yang Kai looked through them one by one, and his eyes finally landed on the dark stone. This stone was round, and he could not tell what material it was made of. Yang Kai poured Yuan Qi into it, but there was no reaction. He also released his divine sense, but he could not find any clues. What is this? Yang Kai looked at the two of them and asked. Tsungyan and Fei Yu both shook their heads. They knew nothing about this stone. It was placed in a very hidden place, so they brought it out casually. Then I'll take this. Yang Kai said with a smile. Tsungyan frowned and said seriously, you should choose a secret art to protect yourself. You probably can't use a saint-grade artifact, your strength is not enough, you can't use the full power of the secret art, and it may even backfire on you. However, this spirit-grade top-rank artifact is very good. Yeah, you don't have to be so modest. Fei Yu was also puzzled. She thought that this kid was very decisive. Why did he suddenly change his personality? She did not like this. Choosing a stone of unknown use, It was a loss no matter how she looked at it. I'm not being modest. Yang Kai laughed. Since you can't tell the origin of this thing, it means that it's either worthless or very valuable. If I take it, I may earn more than you. You're gambling. Tsangyan did not agree. The profit in hand is the real profit. Since it's here, and you brought it out, it means that it's very likely to be valuable. You two are not blind people. Yang Kai smiled and put away the dark stone. I don't need the secret art, and I don't need the secret art. I'll take it. Since you're so insistent, we won't say anything. Don't cry when you find out that you've lost. Fei Yu snorted and no longer tried to dissuade him. Together with the Tsangyan, in front of Yang Kai, they divided up the remaining 4 things. The 2 of them each obtained a saint-grade artifact. As for the remaining spirit-grade high-rank artifact and cultivation method, they each took 1 at random. With such a bountiful harvest, both the Tsangyan and Fei Yu were very happy. Let's go out, martial ancestor should be waiting for us, Tsangyan said, grabbing 2 unconscious disciples and taking the lead to walk out. Fei Yu also grabbed 2 and turned to Yang Kai. You take the last one, I specifically left a beauty for you. Don't worry too much, she should be a flower without a master, take advantage of her while she's unconscious to take advantage of her. As they spoke, their expressions were ambiguous, as if they knew what Yang Kai was thinking. Yang Kai couldn't help laughing, carrying the last soaring heaven sect female disciple on his back and following them out. Returning the way they came, the 3 of them using their movement skills all the way up, soon arriving halfway up the mountain. Identifying the direction, the Tsangyan didn't say a word and flew off in the direction of soaring heaven sect. Yang Kai and Fei Yu hurriedly followed. After an hour or so, the 3 of them arrived at a huge mountain valley. Looking down, there were many scattered houses and cultivator activity in the valley below. Chapter 691. Although the cultivator here was not as densely packed as the Thunder Light sect, Yang Kai found that the overall level of these cultivators was much higher than the Thunder Light sects. The world energy here was as rich as a river, flowing endlessly through the mountain valley. Yang Kai had only just arrived, but after taking a single breath, he felt his whole body relax, relaxing his mind and relaxing his whole body. The mountain valley was so large that Yang Kai could not see the end of it from mid-air. He could not help but be surprised. Rather than calling this a mountain valley, it would be more accurate to call it a sunken plain. Around the mountain valley, there were more than 100 mountain peaks that pierced the sky. There were many birds, beasts, spirit grasses, and spirit medicines growing on these peaks, exuding a vibrant vitality. These mountain peaks seemed to be scattered around the mountain valley, but Yang Kai always felt that they were arranged in a special way. The world energy in the distance seemed to be attracted by some kind of mysterious force and was continuously flowing into the mountain valley through the surrounding hundreds of mountain peaks, nourishing the cultivators in the mountain valley and the spirit grasses and medicines growing on the mountain peaks. Tsangyan and Fei Yu glanced at each other and secretly nodded. Yang Kai could see that there was some mystery here at a glance. Obviously, his eyesight was extraordinary. These 100 mountain peaks are the foundation of my soaring heaven sect, Tsangyan explained. Oh, is there something special about them? Naturally, there is. Tsangyan gently nodded. You should have noticed that the world energy outside is gathering towards the sect. This is the 100 Peaks Spirit Array. With the surrounding 101 mountain peaks as its pivot, it is a shocking giant spirit array. Only half of these mountain peaks are naturally formed. And the other half? It was created by the ancestral founder, Tsangyan grinned. Yang Kai was shocked and exclaimed, your sect's ancestral founder is really amazing. Naturally, when one's strength reaches a certain level, they can overturn rivers and seas, even pluck the stars and summon the moon. It is rumored that some masters can enter the depths of the star field and seek out all kinds of great opportunities and fortunes from the stars. Deep into star field? Yang Kai's eyes were filled with amazement. It was as if a great door was slowly opening in front of him, allowing him to see many mysteries that he had never imagined before. His eyes couldn't help but shine as he listened carefully. Deep into star field. Tsangyan nodded firmly. You saw a strange cyan stone in Old Man Du's hand a few days ago. That's a product of the starfield, it doesn't exist in Tongxian realm. That stone is extremely precious. Unfortunately, it was damaged in the end. Inside the starfield, there are all kinds of herbs and ores you can't even imagine, all of them far surpassing Saint grade. There are even star beasts that are more powerful than Saint realm masters. Each one of them is extremely powerful and extremely large, perhaps even the smallest one is larger than my soaring heaven sect's mountain valley. Kai Yang opened his mouth wide, a look of disbelief on his face. What Tsangyan said was simply too incredible. Ian, that's just a legend. As for what the starfield is like, in fact, even I don't know. No master has ever proven that they have ever entered the starfield, Tsangyan sniffed and added. Yang Kai couldn't help smiling as he nodded, but your soaring heaven sect's 100-peak spirit array is also quite amazing. Where I come from, it's an unimaginable feat where you come from. Tsangyan was stunned. Ian, I come from a small place. It's a remote place, not as wonderful as this world, Yang Kai explained faintly. So that's how it is, Tsangyan nodded. Tsangyan nodded lightly. The 100-peak spirit array is indeed a magnificent feat even in Tongxian realm, it is rare to see such a thing. This spirit array not only gathers world energy, but also plays a defensive role in the event of a great disaster. However, no one has ever dared to invade my soaring heaven sect, so I've never seen the 100-peak spirit array fully activated. The two of you don't need to talk nonsense, hurry up and descend, Fei Yu interrupted the conversation between the two impatiently. Let me introduce you to little brother. Tsangyan decided to build a good relationship with Yang Kai, so the way he addressed him became more intimate. Tsangyan no longer said anything and led Yang Kai and Fei Yu down the mountain valley. Perhaps it was because the world energy aura here was too rich, but looking down from mid-air, the scenery was not very vivid. Everything below the mountain valley seemed to be shrouded in clouds and mist, as if it was a dangerous place. A moment later, the trio landed. As Tsangyan walked forward, the soaring heaven sect disciples he encountered along the way all greeted him respectfully. These cultivators' cultivation was not low, most of them having reached the immortal ascension boundary, their auras incredibly strong, seemingly much stronger than any other cultivator of the same realm. Yang Kai couldn't help marveling at this sight. These soaring heaven sect disciples all had extremely strong vitality, their physique and meridians were exceptionally strong, and their yuan qi was also extremely rich. Obviously, their combat strength was not to be underestimated. After handing over the 5 rescued disciples to these people, Tsangyan led Yang Kai to a relatively remote courtyard and said, "You can stay here for now, I'll come find you after I report to Martial Ancestor." "Don't I need to see that senior now?" Yang Kai frowned, he thought he would have to see soaring heaven sect's Martial Ancestor immediately. Yang Kai had many questions in his heart and wanted to see this Saint Realm Master so he could resolve his doubts, but listening to Tsangyan's words, it was obviously not time yet. "Wait until Martial Ancestor summons you," Tsangyan smiled, not saying anything more, turning around and leaving in a carefree manner. Fei Yu glanced over at Yang Kai and said considerately, "You don't have to feel too much psychological burden, Martial Ancestor won't have any malicious intent towards a little guy like you. If he really wanted to harm you, he wouldn't have sent Tsangyan. Ian, here, I'll give you 2 things to pass the time." Saying so, she suddenly threw 2 things to Yang Kai. Yang Kai caught them and found that they were actually shackles made of some unknown stone material. "What are these?" Yang Kai examined them and found that there wasn't anything special about them. Weighing them in his hand, they didn't seem to weigh more than half a kilogram and there were no traces of spirit arrays or energy inside them. It really did seem like they were just toys. "Try pouring your yuan qi into them as much as you can," Fei Yu reminded him. Yang Kai nodded and poured his yuan qi into the 2 shackles. In the next moment, he suddenly felt a heavy feeling hit him. This heavy feeling was so heavy that even he couldn't hold it firmly. His body was pulled forward and he almost fell to the ground. Tumbling a few times in the air, Yang Kai managed to avoid this embarrassing fate. Asterisk hong hong, asterisk accompanied by 2 muffled sounds, the 2 shackles fell to the ground, creating a huge crater. Yang Kai's face paled as he stared at the scene in front of him. Accompanied by a burst of giggling laughter, Fei Yu seemed to be overjoyed. Are you messing with me? Yang Kai frowned and stared at this beautiful woman. Because he felt that this woman didn't have any malicious intentions, Yang Kai naturally didn't think much of it, but he didn't expect her to be so evil. Those 2 shackles were obviously not some ordinary toy, but something of great significance. Sister is just teaching you, don't trust anyone easily. Fei Yu giggled. Yang Kai took a deep breath and nodded. Thank you, Auntie, you really are insidious. Fei Yu's laughter suddenly stopped, her pair of beautiful eyes spitting fire as she stared at Yang Kai. A burst of laughter came from the top of a nearby tree. Fei Yu raised her hand and summoned a giant water dragon, sending it flying towards the man hiding in the tree and biting him. If you laugh one more time, I'll tear your mouth off. Fei Yu glared at the man coldly. The man shrunk his neck and didn't dare laugh again, flicking his finger and shattering Fei Yu's water dragon before disappearing like a bolt of lightning, his voice calling out from afar, "Boy, if you want to live a long life, you'd best stay away from that crazy woman. Rimaru, you're dead today." Fei Yu's tender body flickered as she chased after him. Yang Kai's expression became solemn. Another third-order transcendent master. Just now, this man had been hiding nearby, even Yang Kai hadn't noticed him, his aura completely concealed. Although it was only a quick glance, Yang Kai was able to clearly see this man's face. He was thin, short, and had a mustache on either side of his mouth, giving him an extremely wretched appearance. He was a master who was particularly easy to remember. On the way here, Tsangyan had told him that Soaring Heaven's sect had 4 third-order transcendent realm protectors, Tsangyan and Fei Yu being one of them. This Rimaru should also be one of them. As for the remaining one, Yang Kai hadn't seen him yet. But now, it seemed that these 4 all had their own specialties within their respective territory. Tsangyan's specialties were fire, Fei Yu's were water, and Rimaru's should be speed or strength. Yang Kai had clearly seen this man's sudden burst of strength and naturally understood how tyrannical he was. Standing in place, no one came to greet him, causing Yang Kai's expression to become somewhat strange. Arriving at such a powerful sect without knowing the specific reason for his actions made Yang Kai feel somewhat uncomfortable. However, there was no point in thinking too much about it. Right now, he could only wait until he met with Soaring Heaven sect's ancestral founder to ask for an explanation. His eyes flashing, Yang Kai stared at the 2 strange shackles in the pit in front of him and reached out to pick them up. When he touched them, Yang Kai was surprised to find that these 2 shackles weren't heavy at all. Just as he had felt before, they were at most half a kilogram in weight. However, just now, they had been so heavy that they had almost sent him flying and even created a large pit in the ground. Frowning and hesitating for a moment, Yang Kai poured his yuan qi into the shackles. The next moment, Yang Kai's brow rose. Sure enough, as he expected, as he poured in his yuan qi, the 2 shackles on his hands became much heavier, causing his shoulders to tremble slightly. Continuing to pour in, the feeling of heaviness became more and more intense. Yang Kai hadn't exerted his full strength yet, but he found that he couldn't hold the 2 shackles any longer. They weighed at least 5,000 or 6,000 kilograms. The place where he stood suddenly began to crack like a spiderweb, as if the ground was unable to withstand such a huge pressure. After perceiving the mystery of these 2 shackles, Yang Kai smiled happily, suddenly feeling that the things Fei Yu had thrown to him were really good. They were not only useful for killing time, but also useful for tempering his physical strength. Chapter 692. Soaring Heaven Sect, inside a secret room. Tsangyan stood respectfully in place, reporting to the martial ancestor what had happened after seeing Yang Kai. After hearing that Yang Kai had killed Duan Hai and Shu Qi in front of Xia Chengyin, Soaring Heaven Sect's martial ancestor couldn't help showing a meaningful smile. Soon after, martial ancestor spoke about what had happened in the cave mansion, causing him to be quite surprised. He has a conflagrated knowledge, see? Tsangyan nodded solemnly. Does martial ancestor not know? I don't know. The old man slowly shook his head. I only vaguely felt that this matter could only be solved with his help, so when you were about to return, I sent Fei Yu over. Then martial ancestor has never seen that little brat before? I haven't seen him before, But he has some kind of relationship with this old master. Tsang looked confused, obviously not understanding what kind of relationship Yang Kai had with the martial ancestor. Good, besides you and Du Wn, Xia Chengyan also knows that he has a conflagrated knowledge see, right? The martial ancestor asked lightly. Tsang expression became solemn as he nodded lightly. Yes, that little girl from the Alchemist Guild also knows, and on the way back, Feiyu also saw him. I understand, you may withdraw. Disciple will take his leave. Tsang bowed and withdrew. After leaving the secret room, he stared thoughtfully in the direction of Bright Thunder Spirit Religion, a cold smile appearing on his face. Yang Kai stayed in Soaring Heaven sect for 2 days. Only Feiyu came to see him once. Tsang was nowhere to be found, and no one else came to greet him. Feiyu gave him a jar of 1000 safflower wine, saying it was a gift to thank him for helping her in the cave mansion. This beautiful woman was somewhat wanton and uninhibited. When she came to find Kai Yang, she was drunk, her body reeking of alcohol, her cheeks were red, and her slender neck glowed a different shade of red, making her look extremely attractive. Don't drink too much this time, your little body won't be able to bear it. Feiyu said with a smile, putting down the 1000 safflower wine. She disappeared. Yang Kai didn't know where she went. Yang Kai just smiled helplessly, not even having a chance to inquire about this woman's whereabouts. He could only put the 1000 safflower into his black book space and continue to walk around the courtyard. In the eyes of outsiders, he was just strolling casually, and his pace was neither fast nor slow. However, his flesh and blood were obviously wriggling endlessly, and his body seemed to be enduring an enormous and incomparable pressure. But what made people feel strange was that the place where he landed was ordinary and did not leave behind any traces. 3 days later, Kang Yang suddenly appeared and beckoned to Yang Kai. Martial ancestor wants to see you. Hearing this, Yang Kai's heart seized his heart. There were too many questions he needed to ask, and he also wanted to know what kind of person Soaring Heaven sect's martial ancestor was. Yang Kai had only walked a short distance when Tsang suddenly looked at him strangely and asked, "Are you nervous?" No, Yang Kai shook his head. Then why is your yuan qi constantly bursting out? And why is your physique so tight? No. Tsang expression suddenly changed as he stared deeply at Yang Kai, asking in surprise, "Did Feiyu give you the primordial shackles? Are they called the primordial shackles?" Tsang nodded lightly. The more yuan qi is poured in, the heavier the shackles become. How much weight are you bearing now? About 4,000 to 5,000 kilograms. You're really strange, boy, Tsang said in surprise. Did you specialize in cultivating your physique before? Yes, I did. His unyielding golden skeleton secret art was specifically designed to develop his physique. Now that he was bearing 4,000 to 5,000 kilograms of weight, apart from feeling a little unnatural, Yang Kai didn't seem any different from usual. Even when he walked, he didn't leave any marks on the ground. Tsang was amazed. He had also worn Feiyu's primordial shackles before, but when he was at Yang Kai's level, he couldn't be as relaxed as he was. How could an alchemist's physique be so strong? Alchemists were immersed in the alchemic way all year round and rarely had time to cultivate, so basically all alchemists weren't very strong. If a cultivator of the same level fought an alchemist, the one who would lose would definitely be the alchemist. However, Yang Kai had killed Duan Hai and Shu Qi before, entering and exiting the Wind Eye and Thunder Eye. Tsang had seen this clearly and faintly felt that this little brat wasn't just a simple spirit-grade alchemist with a conflagrated knowledge see. After walking for a long time, Tsang suddenly stopped in front of a house and said, "Go in, martial ancestor is waiting for you inside." Yang Kai nodded slightly, took a deep breath, and strode in. Walking into the house and turning a corner, Yang Kai saw a flickering candle that seemed to be on the verge of being extinguished at any moment. The light in the room wasn't very bright and a thin old man with white hair and a beard was sitting cross-legged. His aura was as calm as an ancient well and there was nothing special about him. Yang Kai's expression became solemn, knowing that this was Soaring Heaven sect's martial ancestor. Looking around, he walked towards him. Arriving in front of him, Yang Kai bowed respectfully. Junior Yang Kai greets senior. The old man slowly opened his eyes and stared at Yang Kai, smiling kindly. Your aptitude is good, your perseverance is good, and you have both courage and courage. It is rare to see such a young man nowadays. Senior is too kind. Sit down. Yang Kai sat down cross-legged on a cushion in front of him. After sitting down, his expression suddenly changed as he faintly smelled a faint smell of blood in the air. I know you have a lot of questions, but don't be in a hurry to ask. Open the package in front of you and take a look, the old man said with a smile. Yang Kai looked down and sure enough saw a package in front of him. On this package, there was obviously blood seeping out, and the smell of blood was coming from this package. Yang Kai frowned slightly but didn't hesitate to open the package. After seeing what was inside, he quickly raised his head and stared at Soaring Heaven Sect's martial ancestor in shock. It was actually a human head. Bright Thunder Religion's religion master, Xia Chengyin's head. Before you grow up, no one should be able to reveal the secret of your conflagrated knowledge. See, the old man said with a smile. Many thanks for Senior's help. Yang Kai quickly thanked him. Originally, Yang Kai had planned to wait until he broke through to the transcendent realm before silencing these people, but he hadn't expected that Soaring Heaven Sect's martial ancestor would help him accomplish this ahead of time, allowing Yang Kai to relieve the burden in his heart. At that time, Yang Kai had no choice but to reveal the secret of his conflagrated knowledge. See, because in his opinion, information about the ancient demon clan and the coffin-carrying man could not be leaked. A trivial matter, the old man shook his head lightly. With his strength and means, killing a third-order transcendent realm religion master was indeed a trivial matter. Before Xia Chengyin could even react, his head had already fallen to the ground. Senior, Yang Kai sat up straight and quickly asked, "May I ask, why did you do this? Why did you let the Tsangyan search for me? Why did the Tsangyan take such good care of me? On top of that, you even killed Bright Thunder Religion's religion master for me. We haven't even met before, have we?" "Haha," the old man chuckled. "This old master naturally has his reasons for doing so. This old master's name is Chuling Xiao. Speaking of which, have you thought of something?" Yang Kai's expression changed, faintly perceiving some information. Staring towards the old man, the vigilance in his eyes gradually melted and became brighter and brighter. "It seems you've thought of something, but aren't sure. Then, this old master will show you some evidence." Chuling Xiao smiled heartily, suddenly stretching out his hand and sending a burst of energy into Yang Kai's body. While Yang Kai was caught off guard, the sound of a chain being swung rang out in the secret room. A golden chain suddenly appeared out of thin air and was caught by Chuling Xiao. "Devil Sealing Chain," Yang Kai exclaimed. This was an artifact he had obtained in High Heaven Pavilion's coiling dragon stream. Since obtaining it, he had only used it twice. The first time was when he killed Demon General Meng Ji's soul clone in the Evil Cavern. The second time was when he used the Devil Sealing Chain to deal with Demon Lord Yang Bai. After Yang Bai's death, Yang Kai had taken back the Devil Sealing Chain. But now, the Devil Sealing Chain had been summoned by Soaring Heaven Sect's ancestral founder. "This is this old master's possession." Chuling Xiao looked at Yang Kai with a smile. Yang Kai only felt the confusion in front of him suddenly become clear as he suddenly understood everything. Chuckling meaningfully, he scratched his head and asked, "Ancestral founder?" Chuling Xiao nodded lightly. This old master had not expected that after a few hundred years, someone would actually be able to travel from that world to Tongxian realm. "It seems you've suffered a lot, you've worked hard." "I haven't suffered much, I've had someone to take care of me all this time." Yang Kai's mood subtly became excited as he stared at Chuling Xiao, feeling a sense of familiarity, as if he had just returned home. "That's good," Chuling Xiao sighed lightly. "A few hundred years ago, this old master also went to your world and knew that the resources there were thin. You being able to reach this point is truly surprising. So, High Heaven Pavilion was really founded by you?" Yang Kai's eyes lit up. Chuling Xiao nodded. "The sect was named after myself. Many years ago, I chased a demon general through a void corridor and arrived in your world. I fought with him there and finally managed to disperse his soul, but I was unable to destroy his body no matter how I tried, so I had no choice but to bind it with the Devil Sealing Chain and seal it under a mountain stream. I founded High Heaven Pavilion so that someone could guard the demon general's body. After a few dozen years there, I determined that the demon general's soul had dissipated, so I found my way back. Chu Ling Xiao explained before sighing, time passes so quickly. Are you a disciple of High Heaven Pavilion? Yes. Good, good. You being able to obtain the devil sealing chain shows that there is some kind of fate between you and me. Chu Ling Xiao chuckled, pausing for a moment before asking, what is the situation over there? Is the sect doing well? It's doing well now, but a few years ago, it was almost destroyed. Oh. Tell me about it. This old master has been a bit too irresponsible towards the sect he founded. Yang Kai immediately recounted what had happened to High Heaven Pavilion over the years, not leaving out any details. It had been a long time since he had had such an open and honest conversation with someone. This old man in front of him was not only Soaring Heaven Sect's ancestral founder, but also High Heaven Pavilion's ancestral founder, so Yang Kai naturally didn't conceal anything from him. Chu Ling Xiao also listened with great interest, seemingly quite interested in the successor to the other world. Chapter 693. When he heard that the current sect master of High Heaven Pavilion had actually broken through to the second-order transcendent realm, Chu Ling Xiao's eyes couldn't help lighting up. He was well aware that in the other world, one needed to have extraordinary aptitude and talent to reach this level of cultivation. When he left that year, he didn't leave behind too many things, only a universe bag. This universe bag was later given to Yang Kai by Ling Tai Shu, and Yang Kai passed it to Su Yang. So you're from the central capital's 8 great families. When this old master was there, he also heard about the strength of the central capital's 8 great families. Chu Ling Xiao nodded lightly. They can't compare to this place, Yang Kai said sadly. Any one of the forces here was stronger than the central capital's 8 great families. How did you get here? Chu Ling Xiao asked again. Yang Kai immediately explained how he and Shui Ling had found the Void Corridor and arrived here. Water Spirit Temple, En, this old master has heard of it. In the territory of the sea, it's a force that specializes in water attribute secret arts. Chu Ling Xiao nodded slightly. It's been hard for you to reach this point. This is the path this disciple chose himself, Yang Kai replied seriously. Do you have any plans for your future? Chu Ling Xiao asked kindly. Not at the moment, but I want to find 2 people. Who are you looking for? My 2 senior sisters, they are also here, Yang Kai said casually. Hearing this, Chu Ling Xiao smiled and nodded. What are their characteristics? I can ask the people in the sect to help you keep an eye out for them. Yang Kai was overjoyed and quickly described the characteristics of Su Yang and Xia Ningchang, adding, strictly speaking, they are a group of 4. They are a group of 4. Other than my 2 senior sisters, there is also a devil. It is the devil general's corporeal body that Patriarch sealed back then, but now another devil spirit has entered it. A demon lord. Ancestral founder can rest assured, he shouldn't be part of the demon race, it's just that his secret art is evil. He has also helped me a lot and can be considered a friend of mine. He calls himself the Old Demon. I don't know his specific name. Old Demon? I haven't heard of him, but I trust your judgment. What about the other one? That old guy is called Meng Wu Ya. He's quite a mysterious person. Meng Wu Ya? Chu Ling Xiao's expression changed. You mean Meng Wu Ya? Patriarch knows him? I do know a person called Meng Wu Ya, but I don't know if it's the same person. What does he look like? Yang Kai quickly described Meng Wu Ya's appearance, causing Chu Ling Xiao's expression to become strange as he muttered, it really is him? But isn't he already dead? That old fox is still here, and he even escaped to your world. Yang Kai was surprised. Ancestor, you seem to be very familiar with Treasurer Meng. Not really. I've fought with him a few times, but there's no enmity between us. We've only exchanged a few moves. But this person. He's a very difficult character to deal with. 200 years ago, he was a very famous character, but after his battle with the demon commander, he disappeared without a trace. We all thought he had died. He fought with Patriarch. Yang Kai's eyes couldn't help widening. What level is he? Can he even fight with Patriarch? A Saint Realm Master. Chu Ling Xiao glanced at Yang Kai strangely. What's wrong? Yang Kai's mouth twitched a few times before he replied, a few years ago, he was only a peak immortal ascension boundary cultivator. Later, when I separated from him, he was around the second or third order transcendent realm, but he seems to have been sealed by some kind of seal. Ha 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 ha. Chu Ling Xiao laughed. That old dog deserves it, he must have been struck by the demon commander's profound heavenly seal. That's a grand divine technique with 3 layers of seals, but from what you just said, he should have already unlocked the first layer. It's rare for him to be able to escape with his life from the demon commander, his luck is quite good. Yang Kai's eyes flashed brilliantly, his face filled with disbelief and shock. No wonder he had always felt Treasurer Meng was so mysterious. It turned out that he was actually a top Saint Realm master. Unlocking the first layer of his seal had allowed him to restore his strength to the transcendent realm. If he could unseal the second layer, he might be able to restore his strength to the Saint Realm, and if he could unseal the third layer, he would definitely be able to return to his peak strength. You've brought me some good news. Chu Ling Xiao looked very happy, but it won't be easy to find him. When he fought with the demon commander also suffered a small loss. The demon race is a race that holds grudges, so before his strength is fully restored, this old dog should be hiding himself and won't expose himself in front of the world. After all, he is also a famous figure. Once the demon race receives news about him, I'm afraid he won't be able to escape. Yang Kai was stunned. I'll try to help you pay attention to the movements of your 2 senior sisters. If there's any news, I'll let you know. You can be considered a disciple of my Soaring Heaven sect, so from now on, you can live here with peace of mind. There's no need to restrain yourself, just treat this place as your own home. Disciple understands. Yang Kai took a deep breath and nodded. After learning that the person in front of him was High Heaven Pavilion's ancestral founder, Yang Kai felt that he was no longer an outsider. Fortunately, Chu Ling Xiao had sensed a trace of the Devil Sealing Chain's aura and found him through it. Otherwise, Yang Kai would probably still be homeless and without a home. Tsungyan, Chu Ling Xiao called out. The Tsungyan who had been waiting outside the door immediately walked in. Disciple is here. Arrange a place for your martial nephew. Disciple understands. Right, ancestral founder, Disciple also has a request, Yang Kai suddenly said. If you have anything to say, just say it. Because of some reasons, I need to improve my alchemy skills, so I want to ask the sect to provide me with some herbs. Let Tsungyan arrange it. This is also my Soaring Heaven sect's good fortune. Chu Ling Xiao smiled and nodded. Yang Kai volunteering to help the sect perform alchemy was naturally something he hoped to see happen. After bidding farewell to Chu Ling Xiao, Yang Kai and Tsungyan went outside. Tsungyan looked at Yang Kai strangely and asked, "Did you come from another world?" No wonder I've never heard of you before. I've always wondered how such an outstanding young talent like you could be so unknown, but now I understand. Now that we're family, Martial Uncle will definitely take care of you in the future. If anyone dares to provoke you, Martial Uncle will help you destroy their entire family. Tsungyan grinned. Yang Kai's face went black. When he returned to the courtyard, Yang Kai was surprised to find that Fei Yu was lying lazily in the hallway with a flushed face, her exquisite and graceful curves causing one's imagination to run wild. Half of her breasts were exposed, and her cleavage was tantalizing. She was holding a wine jug in her hand and was currently drinking happily. Drinking again. Tsungyan slowly shook his head and whispered to Yang Kai, "Your martial aunt doesn't look like a woman at all. She loves to drink and reeks of alcohol all year round. I don't think anyone will want her in this life." Before he finished speaking, the wine jug in Fei Yu's hand flew over. Tsungyan caught it indifferently, sniffed it, and said discontentedly, "Isn't this 1000 safflower wine?" Fei Yu got up and glanced sideways at Tsungyan. "You don't have a share of this 1000 safflower wine, my yin-yang soul beckoning lamp." "But you promised me before," Tsungyan said discontentedly. "That 1000 safflower wine, I've already transferred it to this little brother." "You transferred it to him?" Kang Yang stared at Yang Kai in amazement for a moment before suddenly putting on a flattering smile and saying, "Martial nephew, you see. Martial Uncle has been busy for 2 months because of you, shouldn't you show some filial piety?" Yang Kai grinned meaningfully. Good things are for me to keep for myself. Tsang-yen blinked, seemingly not having expected Yang Kai to directly refuse him. Fei Yu's brow furrowed slightly as she asked suspiciously, how did he suddenly become martial nephew? Did this little brother join our Soaring Heaven sect? Strictly speaking, he is a disciple of my Soaring Heaven sect. What happened? Fei Yu was at a loss, her beautiful eyes staring at Yang Kai in surprise. Tsang-yen briefly explained the whole story, causing Fei Yu to suddenly feel a little happy. So, I'm also this little brat's martial aunt. Tsang-yen nodded. Heh, I've gained a cheap martial nephew. Rimaru suddenly appeared from nowhere, his height no higher than Yang Kai's chest, his hands folded behind his back as he stared at Yang Kai, his eyes flashing brilliantly as he nodded lightly, not bad. Greetings, martial uncles. Yang Kai cupped his fists and bowed. The three of them glanced at each other before bursting into laughter, Fei Yu even laughing so hard that she couldn't stand up straight. Rimaru suddenly said, I think we should hold a celebratory feast to celebrate martial nephew's return to the sect. Good idea. Tsang-yen also nodded, let's do it on Serene Resplendent Peak. No. Fei Yu's expression suddenly changed, and she hurriedly tried to stop him. Tsang-yen had already used his movement technique to fly away, his voice echoing from afar, I'm going to hunt some game and bring it back. Rimaru also disappeared in a flash, I'm going to find Fei Jian, we can't leave him out of the good stuff. In the blink of an eye, only Fei Yu and Yang Kai were left. The beautiful woman clenched her teeth as she stared in the direction Tsang-yen and Rimaru disappeared, hatefully saying, you bastard. After cursing, she smiled sweetly and shook her head, a bunch of shameless bastards who only know how to scheme against my 1,000 safflower wine. She then glanced at Yang Kai, let's go, if we don't satisfy them this time, they'll definitely live on Serene Resplendent Peak. What a headache. I'm going too. Yang Kai was stunned. You're the target they set up, of course you have to go. Fei Yu nodded, and without any explanation, grabbed Yang Kai by the collar and flew towards a distant mountain peak. Just as they flew, they suddenly felt a strange weight. Her beautiful face couldn't help but change, and she quickly increased her strength. Fei Yu faintly glanced at Yang Kai, frowned, and said, you're carrying the Primeval shackles? Yang Kai nodded. Don't pour Yuan Qi into me, it's very difficult for me to fly like this. Fei Yu glared at him. She almost made a fool of herself just now. Yang Kai grinned and put away the Yuan Qi, and the two suddenly sped up a lot. Not long after, they descended on a beautiful mountain peak. Chapter 694. This mountain peak was extraordinarily beautiful, with a waterfall at its summit, like the Milky Way, surrounded by mist, giving off a clear and natural feeling. Fei Yu led Yang Kai through the sloping waterfall and landed in front of a cave halfway up the mountain. Yang Kai took a deep breath and relaxed his body and mind, but after probing the cave, he found that there was no one inside. This is Serene Resplendent Peak, where I live. Each of us 4 protectors has our own mountain peak. Their place is very lively, but I don't like the noise, so I live alone. Come with me. Saying so, she led Yang Kai into the cave. The interior of the cave was very spacious, dry, and clean. In the middle of the mountain, stone rooms had been cleverly carved out, and the stone walls were dotted with glowing stones. Here, there was not even the slightest smell, instead it was filled with a faint fragrance. Yang Kai was amazed. He had thought that a woman like Fei Yu, who was so fond of wine, would definitely not have the temperament of a woman, but he had never imagined that her residence would be so exquisite. Little Martial nephew, why don't you live here with me from now on? Martial uncle is quite lonely by himself, Fei Yu suddenly said, not knowing whether she was joking or not. I live here. Before, I arranged for you to live in this mountain valley because I didn't know your origins, but since you are also a disciple of my Soaring Heaven sect, you have the right to choose a mountain peak to live in. Moreover, if you want to practice alchemy, you should need a quiet and comfortable environment, right? My place is quite good, the Tsang-yen people come and go every day, so I'm sure they will disturb you. The conditions here are really good. Yang Kai nodded in agreement. Think about it carefully, Martial uncle is serious. Fei Yu smiled, her blushing face like a ripe fruit. Walking around the mountain, Feiyu and Yang Kai soon arrived at an open space. Although Feiyu said that the Tsungyan bastards only cared about her 1,000 safflower wine, when she arrived, she still enthusiastically arranged the tables and chairs, took out a few jars of her own 1,000 safflower wine, and brought out her treasured spiritual fruits. Just as they settled down, they heard the sound of hurried footsteps nearby. Immediately, Tsungyan, Rimaru, and another tall and thin man strode in. "I seem to smell wine." Rimaru's thick eyebrows twitched as he sniffed the air exaggeratedly. On Kang Yang's back was a monster beast that Yang Kai had never seen before, valiantly charging forward. After seeing the wine jar on the table, both of them revealed a knowing smile and licked their lips. "Feiyu is really a good girl." Feiyu's expression became cold as she scolded them. "1 jar each, drink it all and scram." "Enough, enough." Rimaru nodded quickly, picking up one of the jars, unwilling to let it go. Yang Kai quietly observed the third person. This person should be the last of Soaring Heaven Sect's 4 protectors. He was also a third-order transcendent, but Yang Kai keenly discovered that unlike Tsungyan's oppressive aura, Feiyu's gentle aura, and Rimaru's treacherous aura, this person's aura was particularly sharp. The other party also seemed to be looking at him, suddenly grinning. "Is this the new little martial nephew?" Seeing this grin, Yang Kai almost laughed out loud. Because this person actually had a mouth full of exaggerated buck teeth. Originally, he thought that Rimaru was wretched enough, but compared to this one, he felt like a little wizard meeting a great wizard. These 2 masters from Soaring Heaven Sect were really quite unique. Yang Kai greets martial uncle. Yang Kai solemnly saluted. Fei Jian nodded lightly and suddenly assumed the posture of drawing an arrow. *1. The world seemed to tremble slightly as the surrounding world energy stagnated. Yang Kai instinctively narrowed his eyes. At this moment, he couldn't help feeling a sense of crisis, as if he was being stared at by a poisonous snake, unable to avoid it. Tsungyan, Feiyu, and Rimaru all remained silent, simply staring at Yang Kai with smiles. Fei Jian's index finger twirled and suddenly, with a whoosh, an invisible attack shot straight towards Yang Kai. Yang Kai's eyes bulged as a majestic yuan qi burst from his body and he fiercely punched forward. Hong. The energy around him became chaotic as his yuan qi fluctuated, but Yang Kai didn't move. The eyes of the 4 protectors lit up. Fei Jian grinned and said, "Not bad. Tsungyan told me that your strength was much stronger than an average immortal ascension boundary master, but I didn't believe it. But now it seems that my Soaring Heaven Sect has gained another pillar of support." "Martial uncle uses arrows?" Yang Kai's eyes flashed. Fei Jian nodded lightly, "Yes." Feiyu leaned over and whispered in Yang Kai's ear, "This guy is quite insidious, he never fights head-on, but when he hides in the dark, no one can avoid his arrows. If you want to learn how to play tricks on others, you should ask him for advice." Yang Kai nodded. He understood that Fei Jian's attack just now was just a test and didn't carry any hostility or malice, but even so, it was almost beyond the range of what Yang Kai could withstand. None of these 4 from Soaring Heaven Sect could be underestimated. One's appearance stems from one's heart. Feiyu suddenly smiled meaningfully. "Hey, pay attention to your wording." Rimaru suddenly became unhappy. All right, enough nonsense. I've been waiting for this 1,000 safflower wine for 50 years, let's drink." Tsungyan stepped forward, picked up a jug, opened the seal, and drank a mouthful, his complexion suddenly becoming rosy as he praised, "Good wine." Seeing him eat so heartily, Rimaru and Fei Jian couldn't hold back and quickly joined in. Yang Kai sat to the side and slowly ate a spirit fruit, watching everyone's forthright attitude. A warm feeling welled up in his heart. The relationship between these 4 martial uncles and martial sisters should be very good, and the occasional dispute between them was a catalyst for the improvement of their relationship. After 3 rounds of drinking, each of the 4 martial uncles showed their ugly side, none of them showing the proper attitude of a transcendent realm master. Feiyu's skin glowed red as she drunkenly glanced over at Yang Kai, tossing him her wine jug and smiling charmingly, "Little martial nephew, you should also drink a mouthful." Yang Kai caught the jug, glanced over at her, and also took a big gulp. There wasn't a strong feeling of alcohol, but instead a soft and mellow taste. Kai Yang didn't even have time to praise it before a burning sensation spread from his lower abdomen, like a raging inferno burning within him. Kai Yang's complexion changed. He felt as if all his flesh and meridians were squirming, and an invisible force was rampaging through his body. In an instant, his body no longer listened to him, becoming extremely stiff as he fell backwards onto the ground. Fei Yu reacted quickly and snatched the wine jug from Yang Kai's hand. The 4 third-order Transcendent Realm Masters looked at each other for a moment before suddenly bursting into laughter. After laughing for a while, the 4 martial uncles began drinking again, none of them paying attention to Yang Kai. When Yang Kai woke up again, his surroundings were quiet. Sang Yan and the others had already left, leaving behind only a mess. Fei Yu was lying on a nearby chair, her posture languid, one of her jade arms supporting her head as she stared drunkenly at Yang Kai. Awake. Fei Yu smiled. Yang Kai blushed and nodded slightly. He hadn't expected the so-called 1,000 safflower wine to be so powerful. It really didn't have much alcohol in it, but the energy it contained was enormous. How do you feel? It seems to be quite good. Yang Kai examined himself slightly and found that the yuan qi was flowing through his body faster than before. His physique and meridians were undoubtedly stronger than before. That's good. The 1,000 safflower wine I gave you can only drink 3 mouthfuls a month at most. Don't drink too much, it's not good for your body. I'm going to sleep for a while, you can help yourself. Fei Yu still smiled, pausing for a moment before continuing. Right, tell Sang Yan and the others that you'll be living on Serene Resplendent Peak from now on. They'll deliver the herbs for you to use in alchemy. Got it, Yang Kai nodded. The next moment, Fei Yu closed her beautiful eyes, breathing evenly through her delicate nose, as if she had been forcing herself to keep an eye on Yang Kai. After sitting cross-legged for a long time and absorbing all the remaining medicinal efficacies in his body, Yang Kai got up and began tidying up the mess on the ground. 2 hours later, Fei Yu gradually woke up, stretching and yawning in front of Yang Kai without a care for her image, exposing her exquisite curves. Come with me. I'll find a suitable place for you to cultivate. Fei Yu beckoned and stepped inside. The deeper he went into the mountain, the richer the aura Yang Kai could feel. Not long after, a glittering stone room suddenly appeared in front of Yang Kai. The walls and floor of this stone room were completely paved with crystal stones. Inside these crystal stones, there were faint lines of spirit arrays. World energy continuously flowed into this stone room, giving Yang Kai a warm and comfortable feeling. It was as if he didn't need to do anything as the world energy continuously flowed into his body, enhancing his strength. This was simply a cultivation holy land. Yang Kai released his divine sense and found that this stone room was paved with more than 1 layer of crystal stones, at least a dozen or so, each one more than 12 meters thick. To spend so many crystal stones to create such a stone room, it could be said that the amount of money spent was not small. Staring blankly at the stone room in front of him, Yang Kai was inexplicably shocked. Is this place okay? Fei Yu asked. Is this where you usually cultivate? Yang Kai noticed that somewhere in the stone room, there was an obvious mark left behind by someone who had been meditating here for many years. If I were here, what would you do? I don't need it for the time being. Fei Yu smiled when she heard this. When I comprehend the mysteries of the Saint Realm, I'm afraid I'll need this place. Fei Yu and the other 3 protectors had already reached the peak of the Third Order Transcendent Realm, but because they were unable to comprehend the mysteries of the Saint Realm, they were unable to break through the shackles of their state of mind, so they were unable to break through to the Saint Realm. If the 4 protectors could break through to the Saint Realm, soaring heaven sect strength would grow significantly. You don't need to feel any psychological burden. This stone room is just sitting there, Fei Yu said with a smile. Yang Kai nodded. Then I won't be polite. Here, you don't need to worry about anything, just focus on cultivating. If you're bored, you can come out and find me. I'm usually on Serene Resplendent Peak. If you can't find me, you can find Sang Yan and the others. They should have a lot to teach you, Fei Yu said before quickly disappearing. Chapter 695. A day later, the Tsangyan sect sent a large number of herbs and Yang Kai immediately immersed himself in his alchemy. When he was tired from performing alchemy, he would sit in meditation and rest for a while before resuming. Serene Resplendent Peak was indeed very quiet, with only Yang Kai on this mountain peak. When Yang Kai was performing alchemy or cultivating, Feiyu would never disturb him. Every time she entered or exited, she would hold her breath and keep her hands and feet light. Every day, Yang Kai would have 3 meals of rare monster beast meat, bone soup, and other nutritious delicacies. Although with Yang Kai's current cultivation, he could go months or even a year without eating, Feiyu still insisted on sending him these things every day. When Yang Kai needed them, he would take them and consume the demon god revelation from the game. Occasionally, when he left the stone room, the 4 protectors would gather together and explain to Yang Kai their experiences in cultivation and their insights into the heavenly way and martial Tao. Here, Yang Kai felt a sense of meticulous care and concern. Soaring Heaven Sect had provided him with the best cultivation and alchemy environment. Yang Kai felt grateful. Although he knew that this may have had a lot to do with his aptitude and identity as an alchemist, these 4 martial uncles were really good to him. After a few months, Yang Kai's alchemy level improved again, successfully refining a saint-grade low-rank pill without the help of a spirit array. This brought him much closer to his goal. Over the past few months, Yang Kai spared no effort to refine a large number of pills for Soaring Heaven Sect. The sheer number and quality of the pills he refined left the 4 martial uncles speechless. They only knew that Yang Kai was certified as a spirit-grade low-rank alchemist by the Alchemist Guild, but they never thought that he could produce a steady stream of spirit-grade mid-rank and spirit-grade high-rank pills. Many of these pills even formed pill veins. The 4 martial uncles also realized the seriousness of the problem. After a brief discussion, Yang Kai's existence and abilities were quickly listed as Soaring Heaven Sect's biggest secret. Feiyu also became Yang Kai's bodyguard, never leaving Serene Resplendent Peak. Over the past few days, Yang Kai had only seen Feiyu a few times, but every time he saw her, this beautiful woman would appear drunk. It seemed that she really liked to drink, and whenever she got drunk, she would immediately become intoxicated. When she became drunk, she didn't have the demeanor of a martial aunt, often entangling Yang Kai. Yang Kai didn't know whether to laugh or cry. However, every time she sobered up, she would not remember anything, making Yang Kai extremely helpless. Occasionally, he had some free time. Yang Kai, Yang Kai, Yang Kai, and listened, of course, of course, of course, of course. Ever since he started cultivating, it could be said that Kai Yang had been fumbling around on his own. No one had ever given him any pointers. On the path of the martial Tao, it was better to have someone to guide you than not. The difference was very big. Fortunately, Yang Kai now had the demon eye of annihilation, so by killing some masters, he could forcibly absorb their insights into the martial Tao and heavenly way. Benefiting from this. But what made Yang Kai feel a little regretful was that although Chu Ling Xiao had also asked people to inquire about Su Yang and Xia Ningchang, there had been no progress. Tongxian realm was vast. Trying to find 2 people in this vast sea of people was undoubtedly like looking for a needle in a haystack. One day, a few months later, Yang Kai was in the middle of performing alchemy when he suddenly heard light footsteps outside the door. It was Feiyu's footsteps. She had never disturbed him while he was performing alchemy, but now she had deliberately made some noise. Obviously, she had some business with him. Yang Kai stepped up his movements and after a stick of incense, a spirit-grade top-rank pill came out of the furnace. Putting away the pill, Yang Kai stood up and opened the door to the stone room, looking at Feiyu who was waiting outside and asking, "Martial uncle, is there something you need? Did I disturb you?" Yang Kai shook his head. "That's good," Feiyu sighed softly. "Tsungyan is looking for you. He's right outside." "I'll go take a look," Yang Kai said and quickly walked out. Not long after, Yang Kai saw Tsungyan. This time, not only did he come, but Rimaru and Fei Jian were also present. The 3 of them seemed to have a dignified expression. Yang Kai's expression turned cold, not knowing what had happened that made them treat a loose immortal so seriously. Martial nephew, seeing Yang Kai appear, Tsungyan quickly greeted him. "I heard that several martial uncles are looking for me. Take a seat first." Tsungyan waved his hand. Several people sat down in order, and Yang Kai waited quietly. After a while, Tsungyen said in a deep voice, "Martial nephew, it's not that these martial uncles are suspicious of you, but tell me honestly, what level of alchemist are you now?" From old Du, Tsungyen knew that Yang Kai was a spiritual level low-grade alchemist. But during this time, his performance was not something a spiritual level low-grade alchemist could do at all. Spiritual level mid-grade and high-grade pills were constantly coming out of the furnace. Yang Kai was obviously not just a spiritual level low-grade alchemist. Old Du would not lie to Tsungyen, so the only possibility was that Yang Kai had hidden his true ability in the Alchemist Guild. Feiyu's beautiful eyes also lit up as she stared at Yang Kai and said, "A few days ago, I remember that you refined a saint-grade pill." Hearing this, Tsungyen's expression changed. "Really?" "Yes." Yang Kai nodded, took out the saint-grade pill, and said, "I was lucky enough to refine a pill." Tsungyen quickly took it and carefully examined it, his expression becoming a little excited. "Then can you refine a saint-grade pill?" "I should be able to." Yang Kai nodded. He had never used a spirit array or even the myriad drug milk to refine alchemy pills. Spirit arrays could increase the success rate of alchemy, and the myriad drug milk could improve the quality of pills. If these two factors were considered, Yang Kai could now easily refine a saint-grade low-rank pill. "Doesn't that mean you're a saint-grade alchemist?" Rimaru exclaimed. Everyone else also wore an incredulous expression. "Almost," Yang Kai said modestly. All of them took a deep breath at the same time and glanced at each other, Fei Jian baring his teeth and saying, "Then it's done." "Indeed." Tsungyen also nodded firmly. "Martial uncles and sisters, do you want me to help you refine pills?" Yang Kai asked curiously. "Barely," Tsungyen nodded, "but not entirely. Martial nephew, have you ever heard of the 1,000-year demon flower?" Yang Kai shook his head. Tsungyen smiled bitterly. "Right, I forgot you came from another world. You probably haven't heard of it, but in Tongxian realm, the three great clans of the human, demon, and monster race, you should know, right?" "I know that," Yang Kai nodded lightly. The human territory, demon land, and monster race territory are the general names of the three great clans' areas of activity. Among them, the human territory covers the largest area, followed by the demon land and monster race territory. There is also a neutral zone in between. Yang Kai also knew this because Shui Ling had explained it to him when he first arrived in Tongxian realm. In this neutral zone, there is a place called Ascending Heaven Cliff. It's on a mountain peak that's as high as 10,000 feet. On the Ascending Sky Cliff, there's a single 1,000-year demon flower. It blooms once every 1,000 years, and every time it blooms, it withers in less than 2 hours. What use does this 1,000-year demon flower have? Yang Kai keenly grasped the crux of the problem and asked in a deep voice. "It has no use for you and most people in this world, but for the four of us, it is very useful. It can help us comprehend the mysteries of the Saint Realm. With the help of the 1,000-year demon flower's energy, we may be able to break through our current bottlenecks in one fell swoop." Feiyu also said with some excitement. Yang Kai's expression shook. But because of the special nature of the 1,000-year demon flower, it requires a highly skilled alchemist to condense the medicinal liquid when the flower blooms. And this alchemist has to be at least a high-rank spirit-grade alchemist in order to accomplish this. "So you need me to do it?" "Yes. There should be alchemists in the sect who are more skilled than me, right?" Yang Kai was stunned. Soaring Heaven sect was such a big sect, so it was likely that there were saint-grade alchemists. Even if there weren't any saint-grade alchemists, there would still be several spirit-grade top-rank alchemists. These alchemists were all far more experienced than Yang Kai. Those people are the sect's honored guests, so this trip is very dangerous, they may not be willing to go. Moreover, even if their alchemy skills are better than yours, their combat strength is not as good as yours. "I understand," Yang Kai nodded heavily. "In other words, there are many people staring at the 1,000-year demon flower, right?" "You can't even imagine." Tsungyen's expression became solemn as he gave a slight sigh. "It blooms once every 1,000 years, so naturally people will pay attention to the movements of the 1,000-year demon flower. If we can obtain news that it is about to bloom, others will naturally be able to as well. As long as there is a master who wants to break through to the Saint Realm, they will definitely try to obtain it." Martial nephew, this trip is really dangerous. If you don't want to go, we won't force you. Fei Yu looked at Yang Kai and said softly. I'll go. Yang Kai smiled lightly. If I can help my 4 martial uncles break through to the Saint Realm, even if it's a dragon's pool or a tiger's den, I'll try my best. Fei Yu's beautiful eyes flashed as a look of gratitude appeared on her face. Tsangyan and the others were also moved. Good boy, martial uncle didn't dote on you in vain, Rimaru laughed. Then prepare yourself, we'll set off in 5 days, there's still time, Tsangyan said. Yang Kai nodded. The 3 men quickly left. In order to cope with the upcoming trip, they had to make some preparations as well. Whether or not we succeed this time, I must thank you, Fei Yu said softly. My martial uncles have taken good care of me, this is what I should do. Yang Kai shook his head. Fei Yu looked at him quietly, as if she wanted to see through his heart. After a while, she suddenly laughed. I'm going to take a bath. Do you want to join me? Yang Kai's face darkened. Did you drink again? Boring. Fei Yu spat disdainfully before her tender body flickered and disappeared. Yang Kai shook his head. This open and forthright martial uncle master was really difficult to deal with. She would often say some shocking things that people couldn't respond to. During the 5 days, Yang Kai didn't make any special preparations and just refined pills as usual. 5 days later, everything was ready. Yang Kai walked out of the stone room. Fei Yu was already waiting outside. Seeing him appear, she smiled and gently waved her hand. Where are the Tsangyan martial uncles and the others? Yang Kai asked. They're waiting outside. Flying out of the cave, Tsangyan and the others were indeed standing below the waterfall, looking up and waiting. Chapter 696. Seeing Yang Kai appear, Tsangyan and the others didn't speak any nonsense, nodding slightly to him before immediately setting off. The 4 protectors used their own methods to fly forward with Yang Kai following behind them at a leisurely pace. Sensing the current condition of his body, Soaring Heaven Sect's 4 protectors couldn't help frowning slightly. Because they discovered that since Fei Yu gave the primordial shackles to Yang Kai a few months ago, he had never taken them off, and even now, he was still bearing a burden of several thousand kilograms. Yang Kai himself seemed to have become accustomed to such a burden, so there wasn't the slightest unnatural expression on his face, remaining as calm as ever. This little brat's physique is a bit too abnormal, it's not even inferior to the demon races. Such a thought involuntarily emerged in the minds of the 4 protectors. Not long after they set off, Tsangyan suddenly let out a light sigh and looked down. At the same time, Yang Kai also heard a voice calling out to him from below. The source of this voice was a white-haired old man who was stroking his beard and looking towards them. Beside the old man, a young woman was jumping up and down, constantly gesturing towards him. It's Old Man Du. Tsangyan looked surprised and waved his hand. Let's go down and have a look. As he landed on the ground, Yang Kai really saw Old Man Du and Mina from the Alchemist Guild. After seeing Yang Kai, Mina immediately rushed up and angrily shouted, "You bastard! Didn't you say you would come to Grand Boulder City to see me when you had time? Why haven't I seen you come over these past few months?" "Ah, I was a bit busy, so I forgot," Yang Kai said awkwardly. "Do you think my alchemy skills are inferior to yours, so you look down on me?" Mina put her hands on her hips and asked. No, Yang Kai quickly waved his hand. "I was really a bit busy. You better tell me the truth, otherwise I'll bite you to death." Mina's anger was greatly relieved. "I'm also a spirit-grade low-rank alchemist now, just like you, so don't be so complacent, maybe I'll surpass you soon." Old Man Du observed the situation with a smile, his eyes flashing as he said, "Mina, little friend Yang seems to be different from you." "What? How is it different?" Mina was puzzled. Little friend Yang should be at least a spirit-grade top-rank alchemist now, right? Old Man Du stared at Yang Kai with a burning gaze. Yang Kai scratched his head awkwardly, his expression suddenly becoming serious as he cupped his fists. "Sorry, Old Man Du, I didn't tell you the truth back at the Alchemist Guild. In fact, I have been a spirit-grade top-rank alchemist since a few months ago." Old Man Du's expression changed slightly as he stared at Yang Kai in shock and astonishment. Mina couldn't help covering her mouth as a look of shock appeared on her face. I see. Old Man Du suddenly laughed again. It seems that this old master has underestimated you. Little friend Young doesn't need to worry about it. For you to be honest with this old master now, this old master is very pleased. How does Old Man Du know that I am now a spirit-grade top-rank alchemist? Yang Kai asked curiously. Didn't Tsangyan want to take you to Floating Cloud City? Alchemists who can go there are at least spirit-grade top-rank alchemists. Old Man Du smiled lightly. Tsangyan's expression changed. Old Man Du is also going there. Ian, this old master has been waiting for you here. The journey is long, so this old master wanted to find a few bodyguards to accompany him. Old Man Du said half-jokingly, but you can rest assured, this old master isn't going there for the 1,000-year demon flower. I just want to take Mina out to gain experience and broaden her horizons. This little girl doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth, thinking that she is the only alchemist with outstanding aptitude in this world. I believe this trip will allow her to gain a lot. Old Man Du, I don't think so anymore. Mina felt extremely wronged. Before meeting young Kai, Mina's eyes were really high. She was still young, but a few months ago, she had already obtained the qualifications to become a mysterious grade top-rank alchemist. Old Man Du and her master Yi Xiong also had great expectations for her and were training her as the successor of Grand Boulder City's Alchemist Guild. But since meeting young Kai, Mina had suffered a series of blows, and this time it was even more serious. Young Kai had already become a spirit-grade top-rank alchemist, yet she was still proud of her small breakthrough. Thinking so, Mina's pretty face flushed red and she couldn't wait to find a hole to crawl into and never come out again. Old Man Du chuckled. The 1,000-year demon flower is about to bloom, so I believe there will be many powerful alchemists heading to Floating Cloud City. This is a once-in-a-1,000-year event. This old master doesn't want to miss it. If you don't mind, why don't you take us along? Old Man Du is too polite. Tsangyan shook his head. Since you are also going to Floating Cloud City, we can go together and take care of each other. Old Man Du smiled and nodded. After reaching an agreement, the 4 soaring heaven sect disciples began circulating their yuan qi, wrapping Old Man Du and Mina in it before flying off together. Seeing Mina's sullen look, young Kai couldn't help feeling a little apologetic, so he leaned over and asked, "What's wrong?" "You're going too far." Mina pouted and glared at him. "I'm going too far." Young Kai was stunned. Mina nodded repeatedly before suddenly saying in a serious tone, "But don't be so complacent. Old Man Du said that as long as I continue to work hard, one day I will be able to catch up to you." "I'm not complacent, am I?" Young Kai said helplessly. "Although you don't show it on your face, in fact, you're feeling proud in your heart." Young Kai shook his head and sighed. "Your world is really dark." Seeing these two juniors quarreling, the group of several people couldn't help smiling, seemingly feeling that this trip was no longer so boring. Soaring Heaven Sect was very far from their destination, Floating Cloud City. Even with the strength of Tsangyan's group, it would still take them at least a month to reach their destination. And this was even if they were flying at full speed. Fortunately, there was still a lot of time before the 1,000-year demon flower bloomed, so Tsangyan and the others were relatively calm. Flying and stopping at intervals, Yang Kai also witnessed the vast riches of Tongxian realm. On this continent, there were countless large and small forces. Every day, many of these forces were destroyed, but these large and small forces were like bamboo shoots after the rain. After one was cut down, another would emerge. Moreover, along the way, they encountered several groups of Transcendent Realm Masters rushing towards Floating Cloud City. These Transcendent Realm Masters, without exception, were all accompanied by an alchemist. When they encountered one another, all of them were quite vigilant. But as time passed, the closer they got to Floating Cloud City, the stronger the smell of gunpowder in the air became. Tsangyan and the others were constantly vigilant, paying attention to the safety of Yang Kai, Old Man Du, and the others. 20 days later, Yang Kai and the others witnessed a great battle between two Transcendent Realm Masters. The number of people on both sides was about the same, and the strength of each side was about the same. Both sides used their respective martial skills and artifacts, creating an astonishing atmosphere. No one saw the result of the battle, but Sungyen and the others did not casually intervene in other people's disputes, so they simply led Yang Kai and the others through the battlefield. After witnessing the first battle, the great battles between Transcendent Realm Masters seemed to have become more frequent. Almost every day, they would see traces of ongoing battles or those that had already ended. According to Sungyen, these were all masters who were rushing to Floating Cloud City and had begun competing with each other midway to eliminate potential rivals. Yang Kai's heart clenched as he became more and more aware of the allure of the 1,000-year demon flower to these second or third order transcendent masters. However, what puzzled Yang Kai was that in this grand event that involved all three clans, the human, monster, and demon clans, there were no Saint Realm masters. After asking this question, Sungyen smiled and said, "Saints don't intervene, this is an unwritten rule. The 1,000-year demon flower is only needed when a transcendent breaks through to the Saint Realm. Whether it is a human, monster, or demon clan, if they want the 1,000-year demon flower, they can only fight for it with their own strength. That's one of the reasons Old Man Du took over. There's another reason." "Oh, I'd like to hear the details." Sungyen seemed a little surprised, obviously not knowing the deeper reason. Yang Kai and Mina were also eagerly waiting and listening attentively. This kind of secret was very attractive to young people like them. "The 1,000-year demon flower doesn't seem to be a product of Tongxian realm," Old Man Du quickly said. Feiyu's pretty face changed as she asked in amazement, "Could it be from Starfield?" It is said to be so." Du Wan nodded slightly. Du Wan nodded lightly. "I don't know how many years ago, but a seed fell from the starry sky to ascending heaven cliff. Then, a plant that no one had ever seen before grew there. 1,000 years later, it bloomed and was accidentally obtained by someone. Only then did the world learn of its magical effects. When this news spread, the human, monster, and demon clans boiled with excitement. Saint Realm Masters were rare, and the 1,000-year demon flower could help a third-order transcendent break through to the Saint Realm. In the second millennium, a Saint Realm Master intervened and a great battle ensued. In the end, a master from the human race ascended ascending heaven cliff, but what was surprising was that the 1,000-year demon flower that should have bloomed withered in an instant. Why is that? Everyone couldn't help showing strange looks. No one knows why, but from then on, no Saint Realm Master intervened in the dispute over the 1,000-year demon flower. Once the aura of a Saint Realm Master leaked out, the 1,000-year demon flower would no longer bloom, so those who go to ascending heaven cliff now are basically all transcendents. "So strange," Rimaru exclaimed. "A product of the star field cannot be explained with common sense." Old Man Du slowly shook his head. "Old Man Du, is there really someone who has entered the star field?" Sungyen frowned and asked, "Although I have heard a lot about the star field, it seems that no one has been able to confirm what kind of world the star field is." "This old master doesn't know." Old Man Du smiled faintly. "According to the demon race, the great demon god, who once reigned supreme, successfully escaped into the star field. The human race and monster race also have such rumors, but no one knows what the truth is." Yang Kai's eyes flashed, but he didn't interrupt. Although he knew that the great demon god had not escaped into the star field and had instead died, it was better not to speak of such matters. There seemed to be an irreconcilable hatred between the human, monster, and demon clans. No one wanted to involve the other two races and would rather destroy them. Chapter 697. Soaring Heaven Sect and Old Man Du were very good to Yang Kai, but if they learned that he had a relationship with the ancient demon clan, they would likely try to persuade him to exterminate the ancient demon clan. Yang Kai didn't want to see such a scene. During his time in Demon God Citadel, he had been taken care of by Li Rong and Han Fei, so he felt that the ancient demon clan was quite good. After chatting for a while, everyone went to rest. In the middle of the night, only a weak bonfire could be seen flickering in the wilderness. Mina quietly tugged at Yang Kai's clothes, causing Yang Kai to open his eyes and stare at her suspiciously. "Come with me," Mina said softly as she crept into the darkness. Yang Kai got up and followed. After walking a few thousand meters, they came to a large tree and Mina sat down, leaning her back against the trunk of the tree before patting the spot next to her, motioning Yang Kai to sit down as well. "What's the matter?" Yang Kai asked curiously. "Nothing, I just wanted to chat with you. If we talk over there, we'll disturb them," Mina smiled. "What do you want to talk about?" Yang Kai plucked a small blade of grass and twirled it around his fingertips. "Just a little chat." Mina straightened her legs and stretched lazily, gradually relaxing a lot before turning her head and asking, "Where did you learn your alchemy skills from? Why are you even younger than me, already a spirit-grade top-rank alchemist? If I said I taught myself, would you believe me?" Yang Kai smiled. Mina curled her lips, apparently not believing what he said. "Then there's nothing I can do," Yang Kai shrugged his shoulders. "Old Man Du said that there must be a top alchemist behind you teaching you. That is an alchemist who is many times more powerful than him." "That's right," Yang Kai nodded lightly. His true alchemic way could be considered to be something left behind by Great Demon God. His alchemy skills could be said to be self-taught, but they could also be said to have come from Great Demon God's inheritance. There really is such a person. Old Du really wants to meet him. Mina's expression changed slightly upon hearing this, but Old Man Du also knows that such a person will not show himself easily, let alone meet with outsiders. "Ha ha!" Yang Kai let out a hollow laugh. Old Man Du wanted to meet this mysterious master, and Yang Kai could understand that. Old Man Du had probably reached a bottleneck in his alchemy level, so he wanted to learn from others and see if he could break through to the next level in his lifetime. This time, he was going to Floating Cloud City. He probably had such a purpose. After all, there would be many powerful alchemists gathered there. If there is a chance, can you recommend Old Man Du? Mina looked at Yang Kai expectantly. Yang Kai was silent for a long time. He couldn't agree to this request. "Why aren't you talking?" Mina saw that he was silent. Thinking that his request was a little too much, he didn't know what to do. "Yes, the person who taught me alchemy is already dead." "Ah." Mina couldn't help covering her mouth as she hurriedly apologized. "I'm sorry, I didn't know." "It doesn't matter." Yang Kai shook his head. At that moment, the expressions of the two suddenly changed. Gazing ahead, a fierce soul consciousness energy was rapidly approaching. In the blink of an eye, the soul consciousness energy was rapidly approaching. In the blink of an eye, this spiritual energy arrived above Yang Kai and Mina. Mina was facing a great enemy and hurriedly summoned all kinds of artifacts to protect herself. Her combat experience was very thin, but her reaction was quite fast. In his fluster, he managed to protect himself completely. Yang Kai glanced at her strangely, his expression indifferent. His eyes gradually became cold as he stared into the void. He felt that this spiritual energy was a little strange, as if it was different from the usual divine sense attacks. Just as he was thinking this, the spiritual energy actually circled around Yang Kai and Mina a few times before rushing into Yang Kai's knowledge sea and disappearing. "Yang Kai!" Mina's beautiful face paled as she hurriedly shouted. Yang Kai's eyes were blank as he sat in place. Shua. The movement here attracted the attention of everyone a few thousand meters away. Tsangyan rushed over and asked, "What happened?" Just now, he had also felt a burst of spiritual energy, so when he heard Mina's shout, he immediately rushed over, but he didn't find anything. Mina panicked and hurriedly explained what had just happened. Possession. Rimaru's complexion changed as he keenly perceived the truth of the matter. A master must have died nearby and his soul escaped from his body, coincidentally bumped into Yang Kai and tried to seize Yang Kai's body for his own use. Possession. Feiyu pursed her lips and smiled, "Then there's no need to worry." Tsangyan also couldn't help relaxing a lot and nodded lightly. Rimaru and Fei Jian both grinned. Why aren't you worried at all?" Mina was so anxious that she almost cried. She also knew what possession was like and what the consequences would be. If things went wrong, Yang Kai's soul could be destroyed. Not only were these four masters from Soaring Heaven sect not worried, they even showed a gloating smile on their faces, something Mina couldn't understand. Old Man Do smiled lightly and said, Mina. Don't worry. Old Man Do, they. Mina stamped her foot. Little friend Yang won't be possessed. Have you forgotten what he possesses? Old Man Do looked at Mina meaningfully. Mina thought about it for a moment before her eyes suddenly lit up. Right, this bastard has a divine sense. Old Man Do nodded lightly. As long as it isn't the soul of a Saint Realm master trying to seize his body, little friend Yang should be able to handle it. All we need to do is wait. This guy is really unlucky. Of all the people he could have chosen, he actually chose little Marshall niece. If it were me, I would have chosen such a delicate little girl like you. Rimaru smiled wretchedly. Mina glared at him fiercely, so disrespectful. Hey, I'm still very young. Rimaru suddenly became unhappy. Inside Yang Kai's knowledge sea, Yang Kai's mouth curled into an inexplicable smile as he stared at the strand of spiritual energy that had become flustered after breaking in. This strand of spiritual energy wanted to swallow Yang Kai's soul and seize Yang Kai's body, but as soon as it entered this burning knowledge sea, this strand of spiritual energy found that something was wrong. It was as if it had stepped into the gates of hell. Surrounded by a sea of flames, the scorching aura caused this strand of spiritual energy to scream in agony, his soul unable to bear such a burning sensation. The pain in his soul was tormenting him greatly. If you don't want to die, show me your soul avatar, Yang Kai said indifferently. The strand of spiritual energy flickered slightly and soon a clear figure appeared in front of Yang Kai, its expression twisted in pain as it grit its teeth and stared towards Yang Kai with a look of dread and horror. This person looked to be in his 50s or 60s, but had a second-order transcendent soul strength. It could be said that this strand of spiritual energy was a powerful master when he was alive. You're really unlucky, Yang Kai shook his head, a look of sarcasm filling his face. Perceiving his hostility, the strand of spiritual energy endured the pain and forced a smile. Little brother, this is a misunderstanding. Things are not what you think. Oh, is that so? Yang Kai grinned. Inside Yang Kai's knowledge sea, the flames began to surge, becoming hotter and hotter. Please allow me to explain, the strand of spiritual energy screamed. Yang Kai turned a deaf ear to this. Since this person wanted to seize his body, he naturally wouldn't be polite. Yang Kai's knowledge sea became turbulent as his conflagrated knowledge sea began to burn towards his opponent's soul. It seemed he wanted to burn this strand of spiritual energy in one fell swoop. Wait, if you let me live, I can tell you a secret. I'm not interested, Yang Kai shook his head, his expression cold and ruthless. It's about your life. The strand of spiritual energy shouted. Yang Kai's eyes narrowed. Gradually calming his turbulent knowledge sea, Yang Kai stared deeply at this strand of spiritual energy for a moment before saying, if you're just stalling for time or trying to deceive me, I won't kill you. I'll only make you suffer a fate worse than death. No, no, seeing Yang Kai not continue to kill him, the strand of spiritual energy finally relaxed. The man couldn't help feeling relieved and quickly asked, are you also going to Floating Cloud City? So what if we are? If you are, you'd best turn around and go back. There is a group of masters in front of us who specialize in hunting people heading to Floating Cloud City. Several groups of people have already been killed. My group was also heading to Floating Cloud City, but now all of them are dead, only my soul managed to escape. How many of them are there? A dozen or so, many of them third-order transcendent masters, all of them extremely vicious. That's a lot of people, Yang Kai muttered. That's right, little brother, you see. I've already told you the truth, do you want to? The man asked submissively, a look of extreme vigilance flashing across the depths of his eyes, as if as soon as Yang Kai made a move, he would do whatever it took to drag Yang Kai down with him. This kind of warning and threat was enough to scare off many people, so he believed that Yang Kai, whose cultivation was lower than his, would not force him to do anything. Yang Kai just smiled lightly and stared back at this strand of spiritual energy. The man's heart clenched as he glared at Yang Kai, but just as he was about to attack, a golden light suddenly burst from the void. Silently, this strand of spiritual energy was purified. After absorbing this purified energy, Yang Kai slowly opened his eyes. Immediately, he saw pairs of eyes staring at him curiously. It's that little brat. Rimaru clapped his hands and laughed. That person really had bad luck. Are you all right? Feiyu asked with concern. I'm fine, but we seem to have a bit of trouble. Yang Kai shook his head and explained the information he had just inquired about. A dozen or so. Tsangyan raised his brow. That's quite a lot. Ien, if we didn't have this information and rushed in recklessly, we might have been caught off guard. Feiyu nodded lightly. Then should we take a detour? Mina asked softly. Why should we? Rimaru grinned meaningfully. So we're just going to pass like this? After resting for a while, we'll continue on our way. If they don't come to provoke us, then we'll leave them be, but if they dare to attack us... Kang Yang's aura suddenly changed and his eyes became sharp, like a sharp sword, terrifying to the extreme. His body also became like a block of ice, exuding an extremely cold aura. He wasn't afraid. In fact, he was even looking forward to it. Li Wan and Fei Jian were the same, and even Fei Yu, who was a woman, was no exception. Yang Kai's eyes lit up, secretly thinking that these 4 soaring heaven sect martial uncles were really a group of radical warmongers. Chapter 698. In the silent wilderness, a group of people walked forward at a leisurely pace. Tsangyan led the way in the front, Rimaru and Feiyu guarded the rear, while Yang Kai, Mina, and Old Man Du were sandwiched in the middle. Except for Mina, everyone else looked indifferent, seemingly unaware of the danger they were about to face. As they walked forward, Yang Kai's expression suddenly became solemn. Suddenly, Yang Kai discovered that Fei Jian had at some unknown time disappeared without a trace. This third-order transcendent master had silently disappeared from everyone's field of vision, even Yang Kai hadn't been able to detect it. As the night wind blew, the surrounding towering trees swayed gently and the lush leaves rustled. In the darkness, there seemed to be a series of ghostly figures flickering about. Mina's pretty face went pale with fright as she involuntarily leaned towards Yang Kai, snuggling up to him as she searched for a sense of security, her pair of beautiful eyes glancing around in horror. Yang Kai gently squeezed her hand, allowing Mina to relax a lot, but she still didn't leave Yang Kai's side. Tsangyan's mouth curled into a subtle smile, seemingly enjoying this tense and exciting situation. Rimaru and Feiyu, who were following behind the group, sneered as they glanced around from time to time, their expressions eager to try. Even Old Man Du, who was an alchemist, had a calm and unruffled look on his face. He obviously believed in the strength of these 4 from soaring heaven sect. Suddenly, a burst of strange laughter rang out from all around them, like a ghost, gloomy and seductive. At this moment, the night wind suddenly became much colder. Soon, several people's laughter rang in everyone's ears in an attempt to disturb their concentration. Soaring Heaven Sect's group remained calm and continued forward. After half an hour, the seductive laughter gradually subsided. The other party seemed to have realized that this kind of behavior couldn't cause Tsangyan to panic and gradually put away this boring trick. Hiding the head but showing the tail, a bunch of cowardly rats. Kang Yang muttered discontentedly. He had thought that there would be a great battle here, causing his blood to boil, but the other party didn't seem to have any intention of immediately taking action. Instead, they were playing tricks on him, constantly probing him. This made him very unhappy. Rimaru, go take a look, Tsangyan ordered. Rimaru grinned fiercely, his small body suddenly disappearing into the darkness. A moment later, a mournful scream suddenly echoed through the jungle, causing everyone who heard it to feel their blood run cold. The blood-curdling screams were extremely short. It was obvious that he was killed without even having time to react. The next moment, a similar scream came from another direction. Yang Kai's eyes flashed. He was certain that the distance between these 2 screams was at least a few thousand meters. In such a short time, Rimaru had accurately located these 2 people's hiding places and killed them in a single blow. A moment later, Rimaru calmly returned and shrugged his shoulders towards Tsangyan, 2 first-order transcendent trash, not enough to fill the gaps between my teeth. Saying so, he licked his lips, a look of dissatisfaction appearing on his face. Hearing this, Mina's eyes rolled back and she fainted. This little girl, her courage is a bit too small, Rimaru was speechless. Yang Kai shook his head and carried Mina on his shoulder. Feiyu suddenly giggled. She must have thought you ate them. Rimaru's face went black, only now realizing that what he had just said was ambiguous. He wanted to defend himself, but there was no one to defend himself against, causing him to feel quite annoyed. The group continued to move forward, seemingly because Rimaru had just killed 2 people, the other party had become even more vigilant. After 2 hours passed, there was nothing unusual about their surroundings. However, Yang Kai was still keenly aware that there was a faint sense of hostility wandering around. Once everyone relaxed, the other party would not hesitate to kill them. Tsangyan, on the other hand, was quite impatient and suddenly stopped, glancing around coldly and shouting, "Since you want to kill us and steal our treasures, why don't you come out and fight? If you keep hiding like this, we'll have to leave this place soon." All around them, there was silence and no one answered. Tsangyan slowly shook his head, looking extremely disappointed, waving his hand and summoning a long sword several dozen meters away. Yang Kai's eyes narrowed as he instantly recognized this long sword. It was the artifact that Tsangyan and Feiyu had obtained from the cave mansion of that man. "This is a saint-grade artifact. To be honest, I haven't had time to refine it yet. Don't you want it? If you kill me, this artifact will be yours." "Saint-grade artifacts are rare," Tsangyan said lightly. "I also have one." Feiyu, eager to see the world in chaos, also threw out her own saint-grade artifact. The 2 unrefined saint-grade artifacts were placed side by side, and in an instant, countless divine senses bit into them like locusts. Yang Kai seemed to hear heavy and greedy breaths coming from all around him. "Hey, you two, when did you get a saint-grade artifact?" Rimaru's eyes widened in envy. "How come I didn't know?" "A few months," Feiyu pursed her lips and smiled, looking at Yang Kai and saying, "I got it on the way back to pick up little Marshal nephew." "There's no justice in this. Why didn't I get a share?" Rimaru shouted. "There were only 2, Feiyu and I shared one each, but speaking of which, there is still a spirit-grade top-rank artifact with Feiyu. Give it to me, give it to me." Rimaru quickly stretched out his hand to Feiyu. "What about Fei Jian?" Feiyu frowned, looking a little embarrassed. "You don't need to worry about him, as long as he has a bow. How about this, whoever kills the most will get this artifact." Feiyu smiled slightly. Rimaru rubbed his palms together and said, "Good idea, I've already killed 2. At this moment, a number of figures suddenly rushed out from all around, all of them moving as fast as lightning towards the 2 saint-grade artifacts. While these people were arguing here, the other side obviously couldn't hold back and felt this was a good opportunity to act. A light flashed across Tsangyan's eyes as the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. Each of these figures exuded a tyrannical transcendent aura and moved extremely fast, arriving in front of the 2 saint-grade artifacts in the blink of an eye. Countless big hands opened up and grabbed towards the artifacts. Asterisk shio shio shio, asterisk a series of whooshing sounds suddenly rang out, and from the corner of Yang Kai's eyes, he caught a glimpse of a golden light flashing through the night sky. Blood splattered as the cultivators who had rushed to the side of the saint-grade artifact were sent flying backwards by the tremendous force. Each of them had a fist-sized hole in their bodies as they were directly pierced through. And these holes, without exception, were all in the position of their hearts. While in mid-air, these cultivators' vitality was completely drained. Killed in one blow. They hadn't even figured out where such a sharp and accurate attack had come from. Rimaru's complexion changed as he rushed over while shouting, "Fei Jian, you insidious bastard, if you have the ability then come out and fight, what's the point of stabbing people in the dark?" Fei Jian did not respond. A series of arrows filled with destructive energy shot out from the most impossible angles, taking the enemy's life before they could even react. Yang Kai released his divine sense and followed the direction of the source of these arrows, trying to find where Fei Jian was hiding, but to no avail. His expression becoming solemn, Yang Kai suddenly realized just how powerful this buck-toothed martial uncle was. From beginning to end, the battle lasted only 10 breaths of time. After Rimaru rushed up and killed one of the enemies, the surroundings suddenly became quiet again. Only the smell of blood lingered at the tip of everyone's nose. The sound of clothes fluttering rang out as the enemies hiding in the dark, with only 2 or 3 remaining, quickly retreated. They also knew that this group from Soaring Heaven sect was not something they could deal with. Only 2 people had been able to kill them all. If all 4 of them had attacked at once, the consequences would have been unimaginable. A huge amount of spiritual energy flowed into Yang Kai's mind. Yang Kai immersed himself in investigating and found that all of these dead enemies were basically a first or second order transcendent cultivator, not a single one was a third order transcendent. Inevitably, Yang Kai felt some regret. A third order transcendent should have gained some insights into how to break through to the Saint realm. Yang Kai needed this. With his current comprehension of the heavenly way and martial Tao, there would be no bottlenecks before he broke through to the Saint realm. However, he had not yet grasped the key to breaking through to the Saint realm. Although back in Demon God Citadel, he had killed Chu Jian, a second-order saint, and obtained some of his insights, Yang Kai's understanding of the Saint realm was still very shallow. Yang Kai needed the souls of a large number of masters in order to figure out the path he wanted to take from their insights and experiences. Tsangyan and Feiyu took back their artifacts. Idiot, how could I not refine a saint-grade artifact? Tsangyan sneered as he took the artifact back into his body. Rimaru walked back dejectedly, his eyes red as he sighed heavily. Fei Jian also appeared like a ghost and stretched out his hand towards Feiyu, grinning as he said, "Give it to me." Feiyu smiled and placed the spirit-grade top-rank artifact she had obtained before into Fei Jian's hand. From beginning to end, Rimaru had only killed 3 people while Fei Jian had killed 5 or 6 at once. This battle was undoubtedly Fei Jian's victory. Yang Kai took a deep breath. This battle seemed very easy, but he also knew that only these masters from Soaring Heaven sect could accomplish such a feat. Perhaps if it had been any other third-order transcendent, they wouldn't have been able to deal with this so easily. Moreover, the gap in strength between each transcendent realm minor realm was quite obvious. Before the transcendent realm, a great realm was divided into 9 minor realms, and the gap between each minor realm and the next was quite small. But the transcendent realm was different. First order, second order, third order, each time one broke through, one's strength would increase by leaps and bounds. This group of hidden enemies had failed to recognize the gap in strength between themselves and Soaring Heaven sect and had instead been tempted by this artifact. After this battle, the road ahead seemed to have become much more peaceful. Along the way, the number of fights they encountered gradually decreased. Everyone who had come this far had their eyes on the 1,000-year demon flower, as no one was willing to start a conflict before the 1,000-year demon flower bloomed. When the sandpiper and clam fought, the fisherman would benefit. Chapter 699. An entire month after leaving Soaring Heaven sect, the group finally set foot on the territory of Tongxian realm. The so-called neutral territory was a territory where the human, monster, and demon races coexisted, a scene that was impossible to see anywhere else. As soon as he set foot in this place, Yang Kai noticed that there was an unusual energy flowing through the air. There were traces of the devil chi that he was more familiar with. There was also another kind of obscure devil chi that he couldn't identify. It should be demon chi. These demonic chi and demonic chi could not be absorbed by the human race, but they were nutrients that the demon race and monster race needed to strengthen themselves. After entering this place, the Tsangyan and the others became even more vigilant. The neutral territory was more chaotic than anywhere else. The slightest carelessness could lead to eternal damnation. After walking for a few more days, they finally saw a towering mountain peak that towered into the clouds. A few dozen kilometers below this mountain peak was a city, the destination of this group's trip, Floating Cloud City. The Tsangyan led the way at a much faster pace, and after half a day, the group arrived at Floating Cloud City. After paying enough crystal stones, the group of people entered the city. Yang Kai obviously felt that the Tsangyan and the others had relaxed their vigilance. Du Wn smiled and said, "Once we enter the city, there won't be much danger. Floating Cloud City is jointly governed by the human, monster, and demon races. The city lord is a Saint Realm master, so no one dares to act too presumptuously here." "Then which race does the city lord belong to?" Yang Kai asked in amazement. This old master isn't too sure. Floating Cloud City changes its city lord every 3 years. The masters of the human, monster, and demon races compete in an arena. They decide who the city lord belongs to. It is precisely because of this method that the peace of this city can be guaranteed. If one clan is allowed to continue to grow, then there will definitely be no place for the other 2 clans. Kang Yang smiled lightly and continued, as far as I know, the current city lord is held by a demon race master. Rest assured, this matter concerns the stability of the 3 clans, so he won't act recklessly. If the neutral territory falls into chaos, he won't be able to control it. If that happens, the entire continent will fall into chaos. This old man and Mina are going to the Alchemist Guild here. What about you, Tsangyan? Du Wan asked. Do you want to come with us? Let's skip it. Tsangyan shook his head. Alchemists were a group of arrogant people. They didn't care whether they were from Soaring Heaven sect or not. Once they entered the Alchemist Guild, they would likely be treated with disdain. With the Tsangyan's hot temper, it was likely they would have a falling out with the Alchemist Guild. At that time, it would be difficult for Elder Du to do anything. Looking at young Kai, Tsangyan said, Little martial nephew, if you want to go, you can go with me. You can go with Elder Du when the time comes. I will come and find you. Mina also nodded. Yes, you're an alchemist, it has nothing to do with us. She obviously wanted to stay with young Kai and continue to learn alchemy from him. Little girl being so direct, could it be you've taken a liking to my little martial nephew? Feiyu giggled and teased. Mina blushed. Don't talk nonsense, I don't like that bastard. Young Kai laughed in surprise. Shaking his head, young Kai said, No, I'll go with my martial uncles. Du Wan gently nodded, then this old man won't force you. Little friend Yang, come here. Saying so, he gently beckoned. Young Kai was puzzled but quickly walked over. What instructions does old man Du have for me? Du Wan smiled lightly and reached out to hand him a mirror box. This is something I obtained a long time ago, you should be able to use it this time. It's best to use it as soon as possible. What is this? Young Kai looked at the mirror box in his hand suspiciously. You'll know when the time comes. Old man Du smiled mysteriously and led Mina in the direction of the Alchemist Guild. After old man Du left, the Tsangyan said, Let's go. Let's find an inn to stay in first. Feiyu quietly approached young Kai and asked softly, What did old man Du give you? I don't know, young Kai shook his head. Inside an inn, the Tsangyan found 2 rooms. Floating Cloud City's inns were full of guests because of the 1,000-year demon flower that was about to bloom. These 2 rooms had been provided by the innkeeper with great difficulty. After some discussion, it was decided that Feiyu and young Kai would stay in one room while the remaining 3 would stay in the other. Young Kai had no objections. In any case, he was used to living with Feiyu. Although Feiyu was a woman, there was a difference in seniority between them, so young Kai naturally didn't think too much about it. After bustling around for a while, everyone finally settled down. Young Kai held the mirror box in his hand and sat cross-legged on the ground with a strange expression on his face. He didn't expect that old man Du would give him such a thing as soon as he entered Floating Cloud City. Open it and take a look. I'm also very curious about what kind of treasure old man Du gave you, Feiyu said with a smile. Young Kai nodded and was about to open the box when he suddenly smiled helplessly and whispered, Everyone, come here. In the next room, Rimaru and Fei Jian, who were eavesdropping, both wore awkward expressions. Rimaru sniffed and said righteously, This little martial nephew doesn't give martial uncle any face, I'll go teach him a lesson. Fei Jian also followed. Tsangyan shook his head and a trace of helplessness appeared on his face, but he could only follow. Inside the room, everyone was looking at the mirror box in young Kai's hand. Obviously, they all wanted to know what was inside. Under their watchful eyes, young Kai opened the mirror box and took out something as thin as a cicada's wing. He didn't know what material this thing was made of. It was cold to the touch, and there were several holes on some parts of this thing. At first glance, this thing looked like a face that had been peeled off from a person's face. It was eerie and terrifying. So that's how it is. Tsangyan's expression changed. Old man Du is quite meticulous. Is this used to change one's appearance? Yang Kai also saw the function of this thing. Put it on and let's see, Fei Yu urged. Yang Kai nodded and covered his face with the gauze. The next moment, he felt as if something was squirming on his face and penetrating his skin, giving him a very comfortable feeling. He didn't know what his current appearance was, but from the changes in the expressions of the four martial uncles in front of him, he could infer that there was definitely a big difference between his appearance before and after. This. Rimaru's jaw dropped. A look of disbelief could be seen on his face. Fei Jian's eyes also widened. Is the change really that big? Yang Kai sneered. See for yourself. Fei Yu waved her hand and condensed a mirror of water in front of Yang Kai. Looking through the mirror, Yang Kai was instantly stunned. The appearance that appeared in the mirror was that of a complete stranger, and it was completely different from his own style. It was quite handsome, and his skin was as white as a woman's. Why is it a gigolo? Yang Kai's face was full of black lines. He reached out and pinched his own face, and the image in the mirror perfectly reflected this scene. Amazing. Tsungyan couldn't help but praise. This artifact is really amazing. Not only did it change your appearance, it even changed your life aura. With this, we don't have to worry about exposing you. Fei Yu smiled sweetly. I really have to thank Old Man Du. I've been having a headache over this problem all this time. Since Yang Kai wanted to go to Ascending Heaven Cliff to condense the medicinal liquid of the 1,000-year demon flower, he would definitely be noticed. If his performance was too outstanding, it would not be good for him to be targeted. The artifact that Old Man Du gave him perfectly solved this problem. It was a simple appearance-changing technique. Tsungyan and the others also knew how to change Yang Kai's appearance, but this kind of appearance-changing technique was still easily seen through by masters, so it couldn't change Yang Kai's life aura. But now, they didn't have to worry about this. Even if Yang Kai's performance this time was outstanding, it didn't matter if he was targeted because what the world saw was not Yang Kai himself. Old Man Du really has a lot of good things, Tsungyan sighed, the last time he took out the blue refining stone that could only be found in Starfield. This time, it was such a useful appearance-changing artifact. Alchemists really were a group of rich people. Especially high-level alchemists, if they wanted something, they didn't need to do it themselves, they only needed to release a message and the cultivator in charge of their alchemy would immediately do it for them. Whether it was the blue refining stone or this artifact, it should be the reward Old Man Du received for his many years of alchemy. Little Marshal Nephew's current appearance is much more pleasing to the eye, Fei Yu smiled flirtatiously. Marshal Aunt likes this kind of gigolo. Although Yang Kai wasn't ugly before, he wasn't flawlessly handsome either. Years of hard work had given him a fierce temperament that made him more attractive the more one looked at him. The more one looked at him, the more handsome he became. But now, he was truly handsome to the point of shocking the world, handsome to the point of being somewhat devilish. Such an appearance was enough to win the favor of any woman in the world. Yang Kai's expression was indifferent. After thinking for a while, he suddenly activated his Yuan Qi and condensed it on his face. In the next moment, his face wriggled, and soon, his appearance changed slightly. Now this is perfect. Yang Kai looked at the mirror and nodded in satisfaction. What's the point of changing? The previous appearance was so good. Although this one isn't bad, it's still not as good as the previous one, Fei Yu pouted. Being flawless is the biggest flaw. Yang Kai shook his head. This looks more natural. Hearing him say this, Fei Yu also pondered, then nodded after a while, agreeing with Yang Kai's point of view. Good, I really need to thank Old Man Du some other time. With the help of this thing, we can really go all out. Tsungyan took a deep breath. Tomorrow, I will go to Ascending Heaven Cliff with Rimaru and Fei Jian to investigate the situation. There isn't much time left. I think many people will make the same choice. It's better to investigate the situation in advance and prepare. Fei Yu, you and Marshal Nephew will wait in the city and pay attention to his safety. Although Floating Cloud City is relatively safe, that doesn't mean there won't be any fights. I know, Fei Yu nodded seriously. Everyone returned to their rooms to rest. Yang Kai didn't take off the appearance-changing artifact on his face and instead kept it there to familiarize himself with its functions. As night fell, in the sky above floating Cloud City, an old man and a young man suddenly appeared. The old man had a head of white hair and a doddering look on his face. Beside him was a young man who appeared to be in his early 20s, but his eyes were extremely bright as he curiously observed the bustling floating Cloud City. The old man was also observing, and after a long time, his pair of turbid eyes flashed with a trace of light, as if he was immersed in his memories, remaining silent for a long time. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.